Today's story is one you won't want to pause, and if stories like this are how you unwind, you can request the next one I narrate. Your pick, your novel, your audiobook. Try Patreon free for 7 days, then just $3 a month. Links in the description. Now, let's begin.
In the desolate wilderness, corpses littered the ground. A pampered young man dressed in luxurious brocade robes stood frozen, staring blankly as his personal guards, his protecting elders, and his sworn protectors fell one after another before his eyes. His master had once told him he would become an unrivaled supreme powerhouse, a dazzling figure who would illuminate an entire era. He needed unshakable confidence and a heart as steady as Mount Tai, even if it collapsed before him. Lin Xiuyuan had always believed he could achieve it. Today, he realized he was wrong. Looking at the demonic figure that seemed to have crawled straight out of hell, terror gripped Lin Xiuyuan's heart. You can't kill me. My master will never let you go. White Cloud City will never let you go. In the future, I am destined to become a saint, to step into the starry void and become an unrivaled powerhouse. There is absolutely no way I will die at the hands of someone like you. Chen gave a wide, mocking grin. A divine physique, only one that grows up becomes a powerhouse. A dead one is nothing at all. Without the slightest hesitation, Chen struck to kill. In Lin Xiuyuan's horrified gaze, a terrifying restriction suddenly activated. In the next instant, a pale jade hand tore through the firmament, reaching down to seize Lin Xiuyuan and carry him away. Chen had anticipated it long ago. An ancient altar materialized around him. A saint artifact of horrifying power awakened, blocking the jade hand in midair. A saint artifact. Who exactly are you? Why dare lay hands on the successor of my White Cloud City? A voice thundered from beyond the sky, tinged with panic. Chen offered no reply. He continued his advance toward Lin Xiuyuan. Do you understand that by doing this, you make yourself an eternal enemy of White Cloud City? Chen severed Lin Xiuyuan's head with a single stroke. Very well. No matter how far you flee, no matter what orthodoxy stands behind you, White Cloud City will make you regret what you have done today. The incarnation of White Cloud City Saint roared in fury. A divine physique had been slain. Chen did not linger. He urged his saint artifact to shatter layer after layer of space and vanished without a trace. Moments later, the true foundation of White Cloud City mobilized. Terrifying auras swept across the land. When they arrived at the battlefield and saw the carnage, rage consumed them. The entire northern desert was shaken. The death of a divine physique was no small matter. Ordinary prodigies could die and be replaced, perhaps only a few future void refining or nirvana realm seeds lost. But a divine physique was different. At minimum, such a being would become a saint in the future, with a high probability of reaching Saint King level. They were the true heirs of the northern desert, the pillars that would anchor the next era. Across all living beings, a divine physique prodigy might appear only once in a millennium. The old ancestor of White Cloud City, a Saint King, dragged his aged body to the central continent. At enormous cost, he borrowed a quasi-emperor artifact and reconstructed the truth of what had happened. Watching his clan's divine physique genius perish, the elderly Saint King wept bitterly. If you find this story on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen. Please report the infringement. This death meant that when his own lifespan finally ran out, White Cloud City would decline completely. Their destiny would be severed. What a sun-devouring sacred land. So vicious. Rage consumed the old Saint King. Considering the current state of the northern desert, countless prodigies already dead, irreconcilable hatred between the two domains, he immediately visited the major powers of the northern desert and rallied them to launch a joint assault on the western regions. With a vengeful Saint King willing to serve as the vanguard, the other sacred lands, ancient clans, and orthodoxies quickly followed suit. They saw an opportunity to plunder the western region's fortunes. If they could destroy the western region's orthodoxies and occupy their territory, combining the strength of two domains, could they not become a second central continent? Under the leadership of this aged Saint King, northern desert forces easily crushed many fringe orthodoxies of the western regions. One newly ascended sacred land was completely annihilated, its saint perished, its saint artifact shattered. The sacred lands and major powers of the western regions grew terrified. Having witnessed the precedent, they had no choice but to unite and launch a counteroffensive against the northern desert. In the ensuing war, profound connection realm cultivators were mere ants. Void refining realm cultivators were nothing more than cannon fodder. Only nirvana realm venerables could put up any real resistance. Clashes between the saints were frequent. This was a war even more brutal than the one that had once raged between the southern and western domains. The situation had already far exceeded Zhou Hao's expectations. But, no matter how many died, Zhou Hao did not care. What mattered to him was that too many had perished. The laws and origin chi released from their deaths fed back into the world, triggering terrifying tidal surges. The opportunity to step into the Saint King realm had finally arrived. Zhou Hao's face lit up with wild joy. He sensed the rules of heaven and earth shifting, the tidal surge of origin chi reaching its peak. This was the perfect moment to break through to the Saint King realm. But the moment the sun-devouring sacred lands phenomenon erupted, it was instantly detected by the old Saint King of White Cloud City. Sun-devouring sacred land. Zhou Hao. Rage consumed the old Saint King. Without another word, he raised his Saint King weapon and charged straight toward Zhou Hao, smashing the breakthrough opportunity to pieces. Zhou Hao's expression turned pitch black as his ascension was forcibly interrupted. He immediately summoned the deepest foundation of the sun-devouring sacred land and clashed with the old Saint King. Facing the frenzied, vengeful old Saint King, Zhou Hao was quickly forced back. His Saint King weapon was sent flying. Just as the old Saint King prepared to deliver the killing blow, a terrifying aura suddenly exploded from deep within the sun-devouring sacred land, shielding Zhou Hao at the last instant. It was the sacred land's last surviving Saint King ancestor, a figure who had long since reached the end of his lifespan and was clinging to his final breath to preserve the sect's glory. Seeing another Saint King block his path to vengeance, the old Saint King of White Cloud City wasted no words. He burned his life essence without hesitation, forcibly restoring himself to peak Saint King combat power. Zhou Hao. You dared to assassinate the divine physique of my White Cloud City. Today, no matter what, you will pay with blood for blood. His eyes blazed crimson with murderous intent. He wanted nothing more than to slaughter Zhou Hao and avenge his clan's successor. The Saint King ancestor of the sun-devouring sacred land opened his turbid eyes. His gaze flickered with complex emotions as he looked at Zhou Hao. In the end, he let out a long sigh and burned everything he had left to stand between Zhou Hao and the old Saint King. Sacred Lord. I can only hold this old bastard back for 5 breaths. Zhou Hao did not hesitate. Even though it meant abandoning the Saint King opportunity he had schemed for so long, being targeted by a mad Saint King left him no choice. If he did not flee now, he would truly die here. When the old Saint King of White Cloud City saw Zhou Hao attempting to escape, he ignored the Saint King ancestor's attacks entirely. He charged straight after Zhou Hao, enduring blow after blow. Zhou Hao's body exploded and reformed several times. In the final moment, he awakened his Saint King weapon once more. While the weapon and the sacred land Saint King ancestor held the old Saint King at bay, Zhou Hao poured every ounce of strength into tearing open space and fleeing the battlefield, returning to the sun-devouring sacred land. Back inside the sacred land, Zhou Hao went straight to the pill hall. He swallowed every single healing pill he could find in great gulps. His storage ring had been destroyed in the battle, countless treasures had turned to ash. He immediately entered seclusion to recover from his injuries, determined to seize the next origin chi tide and break through to Saint King. However, one day, a terrifying aura rose from the two-domain battlefield, like a blazing sun slowly ascending. All origin chi in the region vanished in an instant. Zhou Hao sensed the disturbance and opened his eyes. When he looked toward the source, boundless fury surged within him. He had spent so much effort igniting war between the two domains, only to dress another in wedding robes. Damn it, bastard! Rage boiled inside Zhou Hao. A century of meticulous planning had been on the verge of success, only for the old Saint King of White Cloud City to interrupt at the critical moment. He had suffered grievous wounds, lost the sacred land's last Saint King ancestor, and even the Saint King weapon had vanished. And now, someone else had reaped the harvest he had sown. 100 years of scheming, reduced to nothing. Suddenly, Zhou Hao frowned. The outside world had fallen eerily silent. Who dares sneak into the sun-devouring sacred land and cause trouble? The grand hall's doors were gently pushed open. A figure shrouded entirely in black robes stepped inside slowly. The black-robed man lowered his hood, revealing a face both familiar and strangely distant. Zhou Hao's pupils contracted sharply. Zhou Chen, you really didn't die. Excellent, excellent. So you were never controlled by the slave seal pill at all. Looking into Su Chen's calm, indifferent eyes, Zhou Hao finally understood, he had been thoroughly played. His voice turned icy. The divine physique of White Cloud City, you killed him on purpose, didn't you? You deliberately used White Cloud City's power to wound me severely. Su Chen did not deny it. He merely gave a faint smile. The Sacred Lord is truly perceptive. So, please, Sacred Lord, allow me to send you on your way. Su Chen gripped the heaven-questioning blade. The ancient saint artifact's power awakened within him. Facing an opponent armed with a saint artifact, Zhou Hao showed no surprise. His gaze remained cold. A single saint artifact, that's your reliance. How naive. Even gravely injured, this seed is not something an ant like you can shake. Zhou Hao unleashed his full saintly might. Though Su Chen wielded a saint artifact and had reached the peak of the Nirvana realm, he still appeared insignificant before Zhou Hao. Yet Su Chen showed no fear. He charged straight toward Zhou Hao. At the same moment, the once silent sun-devouring sacred land erupted with terrifying auras. One after another, they surged toward Zhou Hao. Every figure burned with desperate momentum and self-detonated without hesitation. A single Nirvana realm cultivator's self-explosion could never harm Zhou Hao at his peak. But the Zhou Hao of this moment was already heavily wounded, his strength reduced to less than a tenth. He faced Su Chen's saint artifact, and now the suicide blasts of one Nirvana realm venerable after another. Even someone as ruthless as Zhou Hao felt his heart bleed at the sight. These Nirvana realm cultivators were the backbone of the sect. Raising even one required immense resources. Now they were being expended like disposable tools. Zhou Hao's fury reached a boiling point. He resolved to kill Su Chen at any cost. The sun-devouring sacred land had become a scene of utter devastation. Facing Zhou Hao's iron determination to end him, Su Chen quickly fell into a disadvantage. Only by relying on the saint artifact did he repeatedly snatch his life back from the brink. Unlawfully taken from Royal Road, this story should be reported if seen on Amazon. Su Chen evaded Zhou Hao and positioned himself at the very center of the sacred land. Beneath his feet, blood-colored patterns spread outward like a spiderweb, rapidly covering the entire sun-devouring sacred land. Blood sacrifice technique. Zhou Hao's expression changed dramatically. He cried out in shock. How do you possess the blood sacrifice technique? No, this is bad. His rock-solid confidence wavered as Su Chen's aura climbed higher and higher. He knew he had to kill Su Chen immediately. If Su Chen broke through to the Saint Realm, it would be his death. The blood sacrifice technique originated from the Gu clan. Only direct bloodline descendants could use it. That was why Su Chen had spent years secretly slaughtering and devouring the direct descendants of countless powerhouses during the prodigy conflicts. He had been waiting for precisely this moment. The heaven-questioning blade fully awakened. In the sky above, the phantom of an ancient saint materialized. His gaze burned with fierce clarity as he charged straight toward Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao gritted his teeth. Burning his life essence, he poured every last drop of strength into clashing against the ancient saint's phantom. Two terrifying waves of saintly might collided and swept outward. Yet at this moment, the vast majority of the western region's powerhouses were stationed at the front lines against the northern desert. The few who remained simply watched with folded arms, content to observe the sun-devouring sacred land's tragedy unfold. Zhou Hao forced the heaven-questioning blade back and lunged toward Su Chen, intent on stopping his breakthrough. But the instant he tried to draw upon the power of heaven and earth, his expression changed drastically. Horror flooded his face. He violently coughed up a mouthful of pitch-black blood. The inky droplets fell upon mountains and rivers, instantly turning vast stretches of land into lifeless wastelands. When did you poison this seat? Zhou Hao stared in utter disbelief. He could feel the strength draining from his body. His indestructible saintly physique began to age at a visible pace. Deep within his soul, the toxin had already taken root, a terrifying poison even a saint could not expel. Seeing Zhou Hao's incredulous expression, Su Chen threw his head back and laughed. Zhou Hao, today is the day you die. While Zhou Hao had been drawn to the northern desert battlefield, Su Chen had slipped back into the sun-devouring sacred land unnoticed. Using an improved version of the slave seal pill, he had quietly taken control of the pill hall's personnel. Every single healing pill in the sacred land had long since been swapped by him. He had gambled that Zhou Hao would be targeted by the old Saint King of White Cloud City. And he had won. Zhou Hao had indeed been forced into desperate flight by the old Saint King. He had survived, barely. But those healing pills had already been laced with colorless, tasteless, undetectable poison. In his urgency to recover, Zhou Hao had never bothered to inspect them carefully. Now, after successive brutal battles, the toxin had finally penetrated deep into his soul. Zhou Hao let out a miserable laugh. Zhou Chen, this seat underestimated you. You truly are ruthless, far more ruthless than this seat ever was. But do you think this battle is over? He coughed violently. Zhou Chen, you will die. You will die in the most miserable way imaginable. Ha ha ha, from the very beginning, you and I were both fish on the chopping block. Su Chen frowned. Zhou Hao, what are you talking about? Zhou Hao suddenly exploded with violent motion. With his last remaining spiritual chi, he unleashed the sacred land's ultimate killing move. Devour heaven, annihilate spirit. Su Chen had been prepared. He hurled the heaven-questioning blade forward and immediately retreated from the sun-devouring sacred land. The entire sacred land was swallowed by the terrifying killing technique. Space shattered. The sacred land itself disintegrated along with everything inside it. The shockwave caught Su Chen. His body cracked like porcelain on the verge of shattering. He hurriedly stuffed a large handful of healing pills into his mouth. A saint's corpse, gone just like that. Su Chen cursed inwardly. Zhou Hao truly deserved to be called a hegemon. Knowing death was inevitable, he had chosen in his final moments to drag the entire sun-devouring sacred land down with him rather than let Su Chen benefit from his remains. Though he had not obtained Zhou Hao's corpse, Su Chen's gains were still immense. Amid the sacred land's destruction, he had sensed a fleeting trace of the path to becoming a saint. Riding the tidal surge of qi released in the collapse, he prepared to seize the moment and achieve sainthood. Suddenly, he sensed a new presence beside him. He turned. A woman in a black dress sat quietly on the edge of a sheer cliff, gazing at him in silence. Her ink-black pupils radiated an indescribable nobility. Han Chan. The familiar face brought a flood of memories from 100 years ago rushing back into Su Chen's mind. Ever since he had left the western regions for the northern desert all those years ago, he had never seen Zhou Han Chan again. He had assumed she died inside the sacred land. Yet here she was, alive, unchanged, and watching him with those deep, unreadable eyes. Zhou Han Chan's figure vanished, reappearing in front of Su Chen in the blink of an eye. She stared at him in silence. Han Chan, where have you been all these years? Su Chen forced a smile, his voice filled with concern. Yet Zhou Han Chan did not answer. She continued to gaze at him motionlessly, like a lifeless puppet. The stillness sent chills down the spine and made the scalp tingle. Su Chen murmured, for the past 100 years, I searched for you everywhere, but I never found any trace. I thought Zhou Hao had taken your life. At last, Zhou Han Chan spoke. Her face remained utterly expressionless. You are not my brother. You don't need to keep pretending anymore. Though you resemble him closely, you are not Zhou Chen. The real Zhou Chen died during the outer sect trial. From that day onward, the one who returned was never him again, you have simply been wearing his skin. My brother was just an ordinary outer disciple. He had no grand ambitions, no iron will, and he certainly didn't know so many profound cultivation methods. All he ever remembered was what I liked. All he ever wanted was for both of us to survive in the outer sect. Who exactly are you? Faced with Zhou Hanchan's quiet accusation, Su Chen fell silent. After a long moment, his voice came out hoarse and low. I am Zhou Chen, and Zhou Chen is me. Zhou Hanchan's aura suddenly exploded outward. Quasi-saint realm power surged unrestrained. The sky darkened. The sun was obscured. Day and night lost their light. Su Chen's body was hurled backward. Mountain ranges shattered in his wake. You are not Zhou Chen. I will kill you myself, and avenge my brother. Her tone was cold, unmelting ice and snow. She had noticed long ago. Ever since her brother returned from the outer sect trial, he had changed. Though he still cared for her, doted on her. There had always been an invisible barrier. Beneath that familiar skin, another person had been desperately trying to play the role of Zhou Chen. Zhou Hanchan had refused to believe it at first. She tested him again and again. From his favorite foods to daily habits, to the moment she began cultivating. This brother had become better, stronger, more outstanding. He had become the sacred land's celebrated true disciple, admired by all. But what I wanted, was the brother who protected me with everything he had, the one who lived and breathed for our survival together. People vanished like snuffed candles. After their parents died, countless disciples inside the sect had coveted the inheritance their parents left behind. Countless others had cast greedy eyes on the young, graceful Zhou Hanchan. In a sect steeped in darkness, Zhou Chen had raised her step by painful step. Every day had been a struggle. Their only wish had been to survive, together, even if it meant lying broken and bleeding in some forgotten corner, Zhou Chen would still shield her with his own body. Su Chen rose from the rubble, drenched in blood. Looking at Zhou Hanchan's cold, emotionless face, a trace of days flickered through him. This story originates from Royal Road. Ensure the author gets the support they deserve by reading it there. He was Zhou Chen. But Zhou Chen was ultimately not him. Zhou Chen could have abandoned the martial path for Zhou Hanchan. Su Chen could not. He grinned, blood staining his teeth. Little Channer. From now on, I won't hold back. Show me everything you've learned in these 100 years. 100 lifetimes of reincarnation. Am I myself, or someone else? Su Chen had never imagined that the final step would come at the hands of this life's little sister. Zhou Hanchan's face remained blank. I will kill you with my own hands, and then I will find whatever trace of my brother remains. Words were useless now. Su Chen fully unleashed the primordial Tao Tai physique. The ferocious beast of the ancient era manifested in the world, opening its blood-drenched maw as though it would devour heaven and earth itself. Though gravely wounded and without his saint artifact, Su Chen's strength remained horrifying. Zhou Hanchan had disappeared for 100 years, no one knew where she had gone. Yet the divine physique phenomenon that now surrounded her was incomparably noble, as though a true deity from the primordial era had awakened. Her power was in no way inferior to Su Chen at his peak, perhaps even stronger. Blood flowed from Su Chen's mouth. He refused to yield. Countless cultivation methods surged through his mind, linking together like meridians. Heaven and earth trembled. Winds howled, and clouds surged. Boundless phenomena rolled outward in majestic waves. This was the phenomenon of becoming a saint. Zhou Hanchan raised her pale hand. 12 demonic pavilions materialized out of thin air, ancient and oppressive, descending toward Su Chen with crushing weight. A colossal pressure slammed into him. Excruciating pain tore through his mind. An ancient soul imprint flared to life inside his sea of consciousness, blazing with blinding light, trying to force him to abandon all resistance. The sun-devouring soul tether. Su Chen clenched his teeth against the agony. Shock rippled through him. Even after Zhou Hao's death, the soul tether in his mind had not vanished. An overwhelming, suffocating aura pressed down from point-blank range, intent on suppressing him completely. This much, and you think you can make me bow to fate? What a joke. Su Chen's teeth ground together audibly. Zhou Hao's final words echoed in his ears. A bitter, desolate smile curved his blood-stained lips. The already gloomy sky darkened further, as though the heavens themselves were furious. In that moment, Su Chen caught a glimpse of an incomprehensibly massive face hovering above the western regions, looking down upon everything. The firmament itself was a cage. All living beings were merely marionettes on strings. Neither he nor Zhou Hao had ever truly been free. From the very beginning, everything had been a meticulously staged performance. Countless runes suddenly blazed into existence around Su Chen's body, brilliant, flickering like countless candle flames. They converged in his palm, forming a sword. It was not a saint artifact. It was the accumulation of 9 lifetimes. I am Zhou Chen. Zhou Chen is me. Even if this is fate, fate must still be seized by my own hand. Su Chen swung the sword. The sword light cleaved through all 12 demonic pavilions and slashed toward Zhou Hanchan. The strike was too fast, impossibly fast. Zhou Hanchan had no time to react. Su Chen's consciousness suddenly went dark. In his final moment of awareness, that unparalleled sword passed within a hair's breadth of Zhou Hanshan and continued skyward, straight toward an incomprehensibly vast figure clad in white robes, countless demonic patterns flowing across them like rivers of stars. Zhou Hanshan stood frozen. Gentle spiritual rain began to fall from the sky, pattering against her skin. Was it rain, or tears? She could no longer tell. Before her lay a single pill. Swallow it. Become a saint. Chen opened his eyes. He had returned once more to the reverse fate space. So that's how it was. Those old bastards really were ruthless enough. His mind gradually cleared. The sun-devouring sacred land, the primordial remnant clan. Zhou Hao. Zhou Chen. From the very start, they had all been pawns. Zhou Hao, the sacred lord himself, never even possessed the master imprint of the sun-devouring soul tether. That was why he had relied on slave seal pills to control others. In the end, the man had been nothing more than another unfortunate puppet. Chen gave a wry laugh. Who could have imagined that the master of a sacred land, a peak saint, was himself enslaved? And in the end, he died under the very soul tether he thought he controlled. Chen had no idea what the shadowy existence behind it all hoped to achieve by orchestrating such an elaborate game, at such enormous cost. But one thing was certain, that existence had a purpose. And that purpose, most likely centered on Zhou Hanshan. No one would go to such lengths purely for entertainment. No one would spend centuries setting up such a grand play just to watch a good show. Chen opened the reverse fate scripture. Ninth life, on the surface, you were an ordinary member of the sun-devouring sacred land. In secret, you carried the primordial king bloodline of the primordial remnant clan. You soon discovered that while the clan's surviving elders outwardly treated you with utmost respect, they truly regarded you as nothing more than a puppet for their revenge. You did not care. As long as they could be used, their hidden motives were irrelevant. You began your own schemes. Using borrowed momentum, you eliminated numerous true disciples of the sun-devouring sacred land. Just when you believed everything was proceeding smoothly, devastating news arrived, the sacred lord had uncovered your secret. To protect his own greatest secret from exposure, you decisively betrayed the primordial remnant clan's elders and remnants, earning Zhou Hao's trust. You feigned submission to Zhou Hao's control. Moving between the western regions and northern deserts, you single-handedly ignited war between the two domains. In the end, full-scale conflict erupted. Under the banner of the sun-devouring sacred land, you slew the divine physique of White Cloud City, igniting irreconcilable hatred. When the old Saint King of White Cloud City clashed with the sacred land, you quietly reaped the benefits, your calculations flawless. With a Nirvana realm body, you slew a saint. Yet, you never anticipated that your transformation had been noticed long ago by this life's younger sister, Zhou Hanshan. No matter how much you improved, you could never replace the ordinary brother who once held the deepest place in her heart. Zhou Hanshan carried a mysterious inheritance. Perhaps you had already sensed it, but, perhaps a part of you was still Zhou Chen. Though thousands of years of memory dominated, the affection Zhou Chen felt for his little sister had never truly vanished. In the end, you chose to fulfill her wish. You understood that a far more terrifying existence had woven the entire fate of the western regions. Resistance was futile. In this life, you provoked war between the western and northern deserts, annihilated an entire sacred land, and single-handedly altered the course of history. Though your lifespan barely reached 200 years, you sent ripples through the long river of time. Evaluation, 2 stars, purple. Reverse fate points, 20,000. Chen stared at the final reward, eyes wide. 20,000 reverse fate points. Though this life had been short, he had rewritten the destinies of countless people. The tide of the era had shifted because of him. All in, or hold back. Gaining so many reverse fate points in one breath left Chen hesitating. Central Continent still harbored an even greater threat. This life's little sister was clearly no ordinary person. If he reincarnated again within the heavenly profound domain, the situation looked grim. After a long moment of consideration, Chen chose not to spend every last point. Talent, 0, plus. Comprehension, 0, plus. Family background, 0, plus. Dao heart, 450. Talent plus 5,000. Comprehension plus 5,000. Family background plus 5,000. 5,000 points remained. Chen kept them in reserve against unforeseen disaster. Should calamity strike and end his life prematurely, 5,000 reverse fate points, combined with the accumulation of many lifetimes, would still allow him to rise swiftly once more. This story has been taken without authorization. Report any sightings. This life, become a saint. Chen turned to the next page. Chen opened his eyes. In his arms lay a stunning beauty, all charm and allure, her body soft and fragrant against him. The surroundings were elegant beyond measure. Dense spiritual chi filled the air. Every inch of wall, floor, and pillar had been built from top-grade spirit stones. Auspicious dragon and phoenix carvings adorned the chamber, creating a dreamlike and otherworldly. Chen quickly rifled through this life's memories. Fortunately, no protagonist like Lin Zhan had appeared yet. In this incarnation, he was the youngest son of the current patriarch of the Wang clan, one of Central Continent's sacred clans. Wang Chen was a young genius of his generation. At his age, he had already reached the profound connection realm and earned the title of king. The Wang clan of Central Continent. A faint impression surfaced in Su Chen's mind. Back during the alchemy assembly, one of the monstrous alchemists who had lasted until the very end came from this very clan, suppressing all the other alchemy prodigies of the Central Continent. This was an ancient, colossal family. Their ancestor had been a great saint. Within the clan today stood several saint kings and even a single alchemy saint. In the Central Continent, they flourished without rival. The beauty lying beside him came from another major power, one of its direct line successors. She had been sent here deliberately to form a marriage alliance and bind their families closer together. To Su Chen, such arrangements were nothing new. What truly drew his attention was the older brother of this life. Wang Yunfei. Known as the young great emperor. Bearer of the qualifications to become a true great emperor. Born with an ancient taboo divine physique. On the day of his birth, strange phenomena filled the sky. At the age of 10, the most mysterious and ancient force in Central Continent, the Emperor Palace, a power that had genuinely given birth to emperors, personally came knocking and took Wang Yunfei as their direct disciple. Wang Yunfei was undeniably number one among the younger generation of the Central Continent. And because of him, even Su Chen, this younger brother, rose in status. Countless people racked their brains for ways to curry favor with him. Yet something about it felt off to Su Chen. Talents of a great emperor. Those words were never a blessing. The beauty beside him let out a soft murmur in her sleep. Su Chen rose without the slightest ripple of emotion and left the chamber, heading straight for the Wang clan's scripture pavilion. There, the clan stored every secret and hidden record they had ever uncovered. This life had placed him in the Central Continent. But Su Chen had not forgotten that Central Continent still harbored its own supreme overlord. In his previous life, he had heard rumors that the Yu clan declined after a great war. He never learned the exact details, nor did he know who ultimately obtained the Spirit Communion Emperor scripture. 200 years have passed since my last death. Before he could locate any trace of the Yu clan, he first stumbled upon records of his previous incarnation. The sun-devouring Sacred Land's primordial remnant clan survivor had, single-handedly, ignited war between two domains. More than 10 saints had perished. Several sacred-level orthodoxies had fallen into ruin. Even the sun-devouring Sacred Land itself had vanished from the river of history. The records further described the demonic remnant as bearing the primordial Tao Tai physique and cultivating an evil art capable of slaying other prodigies and devouring their origin essence. Should such an evil technique ever reappear, all 5 domains were to unite and exterminate its practitioner without mercy. Peerless great demon. Extreme danger. Capable of overturning the heavens and annihilating all living beings. That was the Wang clan's evaluation of Su Chen's previous life. Clearly, his actions in that life had thoroughly alarmed every major orthodoxy in the heavenly profound domain. They had resolved to strangle the threat in its cradle. Yet, Su Chen knew the true danger had likely never been him. Stepping outside the chessboard, he began to reconsider the truth behind his death in the previous life. Most likely, someone used me to divert the attention of every orthodoxy in the world. What a ruthless method. Su Chen felt genuine admiration. More and more threads began to surface. He gradually understood that the shadowy existence behind everything probably wanted him to stir chaos across the world, either to distract everyone from something else, or to help conceal someone's true identity. The specifics still eluded him. But whatever those ancient monsters were plotting, it was certainly no simple scheme. Su Chen continued searching for information on the Yu clan. After a week of tireless effort, he finally uncovered the relevant records. The Yu clan's great saint ancestor had wielded a quasi-emperor weapon and invaded the western regions. In his battle against a great saint of the west, both he and the weapon vanished without a trace. At the exact same moment, calamity struck the Yu clan. Annihilation. After losing their great saint ancestor and quasi-emperor weapon, the Yu clan became prey in the eyes of the Central Continent's most powerful forces, led by the Emperor Palace. They joined hands to carve up the clan's resources and territory. The once glorious great clan declined rapidly. Yet Yu Shuquang, their divine physique prodigy, had vanished without a trace. No further news emerged of the Emperor scripture either. Su Chen felt a trace of regret. Yu Shuquang's survival meant the Spirit Communion Emperor scripture's whereabouts remained unknown. Should that ancient existence ever seize control of such an unparalleled divine physique and start anew, the consequences would be catastrophic. When Su Chen left the scripture pavilion, he received a summons from this life's father, the current patriarch of the Wang clan. My so-called older brother, the one with great emperor qualifications, Wang Yunfei, has returned. Su Chen was mildly surprised. In his memory of this life, Wang Yunfei had rarely set foot in the Wang clan since the age of 10. Su Chen himself had only met this legendary brother a handful of times. To Wang Chen, Wang Yunfei had always been a figure of awe and myth, more legend than family. His image remained hazy and distant. Su Chen arrived at the clan's grand hall. There he saw the fabled Wang Yunfei. A figure of pure gold stood at the center of the hall. Ancient dragon patterns shimmered faintly along the sleeves of his robe. His features bore some resemblance to Su Chen, yet where Su Chen's demeanor was calm as still water, Wang Yunfei radiated absolute dominance. A faint golden divine mark flickered between his brows. With every breath he took, the laws of heaven and earth seemed to tremble in response. Very strong. That was Su Chen's most immediate impression. What truly stunned him, however, was the unshakable belief radiating from Wang Yunfei, an invincible conviction. He carried the absolute self-assurance that no peer in the world could stand against him. This unyielding faith surpassed anything Su Chen had witnessed across 9 lifetimes. In 9 cycles of reincarnation, Su Chen had encountered countless divine physique prodigies, some of whom had already stepped into the starry void. None of them could compare to the sheer presence Wang Yunfei exuded. Wang Yunfei also noticed Su Chen's arrival. The corners of his mouth lifted in a faint smile. "Little Chen, you've come." Though the words carried warmth, Su Chen clearly sensed the truth beneath them. This was merely the pity a supreme being felt towards someone weaker, someone who happened to be his own younger brother. From beginning to end, not a single ripple of genuine emotion had stirred in Wang Yunfei's eyes. This is a domineering, heartless man. In his world, there are only 2 kinds of people, enemies and defeated foes. Su Chen gave a slight nod. "Greetings, elder brother." The two exchanged brief formalities. The clan elders, filled with curiosity, asked why Wang Yunfei had returned to the family at this time. Wang Yunfei answered calmly. "I came back because the Emperor Palace has arranged a marriage for me. In the near future, I will wed Fan Qinyin. From that day forward, the Wang clan, the Emperor Palace, and the Fan clan will be bound together as eternal allies." The elders exchanged astonished glances, then broke into delighted smiles. The Fan clan was another transcendent power in the central continent, once on par with the Yu clan. Though it had declined from its peak, it had still produced a quasi-emperor in its history and remained one of the continent's foremost great clans. If you spot this tale on Amazon, know that it has been stolen. Report the violation. Fan Qinyin, Central Continent's #1 beauty, was herself a divine physique genius. Her suitors numbered in the tens of thousands. A marriage alliance between the Wang clan and the Fan clan was undoubtedly a joyous event. There is one more matter. Wang Yunfei continued. I have already spoken with the Emperor Palace. They have agreed to allow me to bring one person into the palace for cultivation. In the future, that person will serve as my left and right arm, a general capable of standing beside me to reign supreme across the starry void. The elders' expressions lit up with unrestrained joy. The Emperor Palace was the undisputed strongest force in the central continent, with no exceptions. Even ordinary divine or sacred physique prodigies had no right to enter its gates. Every single cultivator who walked out of the Emperor Palace was destined to dominate an entire era. Its foundation was on a level the Wang clan could never hope to match. Su Chen remained silent, observing everything with calm detachment. Yet Wang Yunfei paid no attention to the elders' delighted expressions. He turned directly towards Su Chen. Little Chen, are you willing to follow me to the Emperor Palace for cultivation? Under the gazes of Wang Yunfei and every elder in the hall, Su Chen shook his head. I am not willing. The hall fell into stunned silence. Even a flicker of surprise passed through Wang Yunfei's usually impassive eyes. The Wang clan patriarch, this life's father, Wang Yaochen, immediately rebuked him sharply. Nonsense. An opportunity to cultivate in the Emperor Palace is something countless people can only dream of. You are Yunfei's younger brother, that is the only reason you were granted this chance. A once-in-a-lifetime fortune like this, and you dare refuse? Wang Yaochen's voice trembled with urgency. He had been the one to raise the suggestion with Wang Yunfei in the first place. Wang Yunfei had spent considerable effort and resources to bend the Emperor Palace's ironclad rules and secure this single slot. For his youngest son to reject it so flatly, how could Wang Yaochen not panic? Su Chen remained unmoved. Facing the hall full of expressions, some gloating, some disappointed, some anxious and furious, he spoke calmly. The chance to cultivate in the Emperor Palace is indeed excellent. But it is not suitable for me. I, Wang Chen, am also a genius of the Wang clan. I do not wish to spend my entire life living in my brother's shadow. I want to walk my own path. What a joke. Entering the Emperor Palace. Su Chen didn't even need to think twice, he knew nothing good would come of it. To spend the rest of his life as Wang Yunfei's follower. Even if this man was his elder brother in this life, Su Chen refused. Whatever the Emperor Palace could offer him, he did not need. Whatever he truly lacked, the Emperor Palace could never provide. And worst of all, stepping inside meant placing himself under the constant surveillance of those terrifying existences. The others in the hall did not understand the real reason behind Su Chen's refusal. But his words rang out like a thunderclap. The grand hall fell deathly quiet. One by one, the gazes upon him began to change, shock, admiration, newfound respect. For the first time, a genuine emotion appeared in Wang Yunfei's otherwise still eyes. Appreciation. He had always viewed this younger brother as little more than a blood relation, someone he would protect out of familial duty, but never someone he truly valued. Now, after hearing those words, Wang Yunfei looked at Su Chen with fresh eyes. For the first time, he felt something close to pride. This, truly is my younger brother. Wang Yunfei gave a slight nod. I will wait for the day you forge your own path. From now on, I, Wang Yunfei, will no longer shelter you. You are my brother, you must carry the same invincible belief that I do. Little Chen. I will be waiting for you on the road to becoming a saint. Su Chen smiled. Very well. Wang Yaochen watched the exchange, his heart filled with both pride and melancholy. His eldest son, Wang Yunfei, possessed talent so monstrous it appeared only once in tens of thousands of years. He was proud beyond measure of Yunfei. But his youngest son was also his own flesh and blood. Wang Chen had always lived in Wang Yunfei's shadow, how could Wang Yaochen not know? Yet living in the shadow was still better than dying. Now, his youngest son had finally grown up. Wang Yunfei's wedding to Fan Qinyin was set for 10 years from now. Su Chen, too, made his decision. He would leave the Wang clan. He would journey across the 5 domains, challenging the geniuses of every land. He would retrace the martial path once more, fusing every technique and insight he had gathered across lifetimes into a single, unique road of his own. He would complete what he had failed to achieve in his previous life. He would become a saint. Of course, he had other goals as well. To see if old acquaintances still lived. To search for any lingering clues about the spirit-divine king. So Su Chen departed the Wang clan alone, without fanfare. A single white horse. A jug of strong wine. A plain green robe. A 3-foot azure sword. He walked the 5 domains. Su Chen left Central Continent. His first destination was the southern barbarian lands. The southern barbarian lands were the weakest. When picking soft persimmons, one always started with the easiest. After stepping through a spatial tunnel, he arrived in the southern barbarian lands. Thousands of years had passed. The land had changed beyond recognition. Revisiting old places, Su Chen learned that the once arrogant Imperial sword dynasty, which had dominated an era, had long since crumbled into dust along with the flow of history. In its place rose one new dynasty after another. In his 6th life, he had offended far too many people. Standing at the pinnacle meant that even death did not erase debts. Though Shen Daoyuan had ultimately broken through to the Nirvana realm, he had still perished under the joint assault of the Imperial sword dynasty's enemies. The Shen clan's bloodline had been extinguished completely. Su Chen let out a soft sigh and headed toward the former site of the Imperial sword manor. He passed through mountains and rivers until he reached the foot of a lush, verdant peak. Along the way, he encountered an old man. When the elder saw Su Chen walking toward the mountain, he quickly called out, "Young hero, are you heading up that peak to search for the ruins of the old Imperial sword manor in hopes of finding some opportunity?" Su Chen nodded. "Does the elder know of the Imperial sword manor?" The old man sighed. "How could I not know? Every year, young people like you come here hoping to uncover the legacy left behind by the Imperial sword manor, dreaming of becoming a legend like Emperor Shen. But without exception, they all end up in the jaws of the tiger god that guards the mountain. That tiger god is the protector of the mountain. It allows no one to covet the ruins of the Imperial sword manor." Su Chen was mildly surprised. Tiger god? Could it be Hu Mao? Was he still alive? He shook his head. "Thank you for the warning, elder. Still, I intend to go up the mountain and take a look." The old man's expression filled with regret. He looked at Su Chen the way one looks at yet another young life about to vanish forever. In his youth, he too had harbored such ambitions. After watching friend after friend enter the mountain and never return, he had finally awakened. From then on, he tried to stop others from throwing their lives away. Yet no matter how clearly he explained the truth, every single person made the same choice as Su Chen, stepping into the mountain, never to be seen again. After Su Chen disappeared into the mountain without a trace, the old man turned and left. If another young cultivator came seeking the ruins, he would appear once more and speak the same words. Inside the mountain, Su Chen did not meet the fate the elder feared. He followed the path all the way to the former site of the Imperial sword manor. Everything had vanished. Wiped clean by the passage of time. "Human, leave now, or I will eat you." A massive white tiger suddenly emerged, baring its fangs and opening a blood-drenched maw large enough to swallow Su Chen in one bite. Su Chen remained calm and unruffled. "So you are the tiger god that guards this place? What relation do you have to Hu Mao? This tale has been unlawfully lifted from Royal Road, report any instances of this story if found elsewhere." The towering white tiger's eyes narrowed with caution the moment it heard the name. It let out a low growl. "Who are you? How do you know my grandfather's name? Speak, or I will devour you." Su Chen casted a faint glance. He extended 5 fingers. In an instant, the world within 100 meters changed. A colossal palm descended from the sky, pressing down toward the white tiger with overwhelming force. The tiger sensed mortal danger. Fear flooded its eyes. It had never imagined this seemingly frail, or less human could be such a terrifying expert. It turned to flee, but the 5 fingers pinned it in place, rendering it immobile. Su Chen rode his white horse up beside it. The horse lowered its head. Golden pupils flashed with undisguised contempt, as if to say, a mere little wild demon dares show disrespect to its master. The white tiger shuddered violently under that gaze. The suppression came from deep within its bloodline. Even with its limited intelligence, it understood instantly, the young man on the white horse was no ordinary person. He was far beyond the miscellaneous trash it had encountered before. The ferocity in the tiger's eyes vanished. Its menacing growl transformed into the crisp, clear voice of a young woman. "Meow young hero, spare me, actually, I'm a cat demon, not a tiger demon at all. My meat is sour, and I can't help with yang deficiency." Su Chen. "You tiger demons really do know a lot. Same personality as Hu Mao." Su Chen was now certain, this white tiger was a descendant of the Hu Mao who had once followed him. The white tiger lowered her voice to a near whisper. These are all things grandfather told me, he said these words could save my life. Great hero, you're a good person. You definitely won't kill a little demon like me, meow. Looking at the gradually clearing eyes of the white tiger, Chen could not help but chuckle. I won't kill you. But I am not a good person. The tiger blinked in confusion. Chen continued calmly. What is your name? And where is your grandfather now? Faced with the question, the tiger hesitated. Remembering that Chen had just said he was not a good person, she obediently answered from the heart. This little demon is called Hu Miao Miao. As for grandfather. A rare trace of sorrow appeared in her tiger eyes. Grandfather passed away 10 years ago. A group of people forced their way into the Imperial Sword Manor. Grandfather fought them to protect this place and suffered mortal wounds. He died 10 years ago. Before he passed, he told me I must stay here and guard the Great Lord forever. Chen felt a slight stir in his heart. Chen had countless descendants, countless kin. In the end, the one who remained most loyal turned out to be this rebellious brain tiger demon. There were far too many people in the world who could not even compare to a single demon. Take me to the Imperial Sword Manor. Chen withdrew his 5 fingers, releasing the suppression on Hu Miao Miao. The tiger shrank back in fear of him and obediently led the way. They arrived at the former site of the Imperial Sword Manor. All that remained was a single dilapidated house, a simple grave mound with clothes and a hat placed upon it, and the standing corpse of a tiger demon, covered in scars, fierce and unyielding, staring into the distance as though still alive. Hu Miao Miao spoke sadly. There are no treasures here at all. Grandfather only guarded this place because it was the Great Lord's home. Every year, outsiders come trying to plunder it. 50 years ago, people from the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land broke in. They took the sword from above the Great Lord's grave. Grandfather fought with his life but could not stop them. Chen listened quietly to her recount the past. He already knew, the sword those people took was almost certainly the one forged from his 6th life body. He stepped forward and gently sensed the lingering aura on the dead Hu Miao's corpse. From it he clearly detected a deeply familiar yet profoundly hostile sword intent. Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. Hu Miao had been mortally wounded by the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's signature sword intent, an injury that could never be healed. That was what ultimately claimed his life. The calm surface of Chen's state of mind suddenly surged with irrepressible killing intent. Hu Miao Miao, are you willing to leave this place and follow me? The tiger froze. A flicker of longing appeared in her eyes. She glanced back at Hu Miao's remains, then hesitated. Great hero, are you a good person? Chen smiled faintly. I am not a good person. Hu Miao Miao lowered her head in submission. Then I am willing to follow the great hero. Grandfather once said, no bad person will ever admit they are bad, and no good person will ever claim they are good. Chen's eyes burned with cold killing intent as he looked into the distance. Then come with me, to take revenge. The Heavenly Sword Sacred Land received an uninvited guest. Nameless swordsman, come to challenge the younger generation of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. Outside the Sacred Land's gates stood a youth mounted on a white horse. In his arms lay a small white-furred cat, its fur soft and pristine. His fingers gently stroked the cat's back while his gaze remained calm and undisturbed. Surrounded by disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land, he showed not the slightest trace of fear. Who are you, sir? Chen's words drew the attention of an outer sect elder. Though the young man dressed plainly, the bearing he exuded was clearly not something any ordinary sect could cultivate. Chen did not raise his eyes. He spoke softly. I have heard that the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land stands as the foremost sword path in the southern barbarian lands. I happen to understand a little about the sword as well, so I came specially to pay my respects. I hope there is someone here worthy of drawing my blade. The disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land immediately understood his intent. He had come to kick down their gates. As disciples of a sacred land, when had they ever suffered such humiliation? What are you, some nobody, daring to spout such arrogant nonsense and challenge the younger generation of our Heavenly Sword Sacred Land? Let me, Shan, teach you the difference between us. A young figure stepped forward and charged at Chen with a sword drawn. Chen did not even glance at him. Suddenly, the young man froze in place, rooted like a statue. Without him realizing, every thread of his clothing had been sliced into ragged strips by invisible sword chi. Cool air pressed against his bare skin. When awareness finally dawned, cold sweat poured down his face. Terror filled his eyes. The entire scene fell deathly silent. Even the outer sect elder had not seen clearly what method the youth had used. But they all understood one thing, if this young man wished to kill Shan, it would take only a single thought. Shan was the top outer disciple, the one with the greatest hope of entering the inner sect. Just who was this young man? In that moment, they realized, perhaps his declaration of challenging the entire younger generation of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land had not been a joke. Too weak. If this is the level of your Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's disciples, I am truly disappointed. Chen continued stroking Hu Miao Miao's fur as though defeating Shan had been less interesting to him than petting a cat. Such blatant contempt, refusing to place the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land in his eyes, ignited fury among the crowd. Arrogant, far too arrogant. When had the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land ever endured such an insult? Several elders burned with rage. Take him down together. No matter what power stands behind this insolent brat, daring to humiliate our heavenly sword sacred land, he must pay the price. This tale has been pilfered from Royal Road. If found on Amazon, kindly file a report. The elders keenly sensed the newcomer came with ill intent. They decided to strike first and end this farce before it escalated. But the moment they moved, the white horse beneath Chen suddenly erupted with terrifying pressure. Its golden pupils shattered like fractured glass. The elders who had just begun to act were instantly slammed to the ground, pinned by the overwhelming aura and unable to move. Even Hu Miao Miao in Chen's arms trembled in fear. He gently soothed her with a hand. Draconic might, that is the legendary dragon horse bloodline. That terrifying aura. I've only ever felt it from the venerable elders in the inner sect. The white horse beneath that youth is actually a Nirvana realm demon venerable. Shock rippled through the crowd. Chen gazed at the immobilized elders with faint disappointment. He spoke calmly. Is this the bearing of your heavenly sword sacred land? Truly disappointing. Bullying the few with numbers, and unable to accept defeat. The elders who had tried to gang up on him flushed crimson, furious and humiliated in equal measure. Just then, a brilliant streak of light appeared. It coalesced into the figure of a young man who spoke coldly. Enough. You came to challenge the younger generation of my heavenly sword sacred land, then challenge them properly. Why go so far as to humiliate them like this? Chen gave a half smile, half sneer. Finally, someone decent has shown up. The disciples of the heavenly sword sacred land brightened at the sight of the newcomer. It's senior brother Song, one of the young kings. He ranks 18th on the southern barbarian lands prodigy list, a supreme genius. With senior brother Song here, this arrogant fool is finished. Song Quan's gaze locked coldly on Chen. You want to fight? Then, Song Quan will oblige. Let's see exactly how much weight you carry, daring to run wild at the gates of my heavenly sword sacred land. Song Quan struck first. Ancient runes rose along the blade of his sword. He unleashed a single, merciless slash aimed straight at Chen, holding nothing back. If the strike landed unopposed, it would kill him instantly. Facing the blow, Chen merely extended a single finger. He didn't even need two. Terrifying sword intent coiled around the digit, sharp enough to sever anything in existence. The space before him rippled like water disturbed by a stone. That one finger transformed into an indestructible sword beam. Song Quan's full power strike collided with it, and shattered like an egg against a boulder. The scene left Song Quan wide-eyed, his expression one of utter disbelief. The technique he prided himself on had been broken so effortlessly. As sword chi raged around him, he stood dazed for a long moment, until the chill wind against his skin finally snapped him back to reality. I lost. Song Quan's voice was hollow. His eyes were vacant. The unshakable faith he held in his sword path had cracked. The defeat of Song Quan sent shockwaves through the entire heavenly sword sacred land. A true disciple, defeated. And not just defeated, humiliated at the very gates of the sect, unable to withstand even a single move. This was an unbearable disgrace. If word of this spread, the heavenly sword sacred land would become the laughingstock of the 5 domains. Summon everyone. Gather all the younger generation disciples. We must win this match, no matter what methods we use. The heavenly sword sacred land cannot afford to lose. The sacred lord of the heavenly sword sacred land issued the command without hesitation. One after another, disciples rushed toward the battlefield. Insolent fool. I will fight you. Don't blame my sword for being merciless. Perhaps senior brother Chen should go first. Every true disciple of the heavenly sword sacred land stepped forward, without exception, they all fell to Chen. In the end, not a single one dared challenge him again. No one could block even one of his moves. Watching friend after friend, enemy after enemy, fall before Chen without lasting a single exchange, they wavered. They retreated. For a young, hot-blooded sword cultivator, hesitation and fear meant the sword path was no longer flawless. They would never be free of this nightmare until they defeated the demon in their hearts. The sacred land's higher powers sensed the danger. If the younger generation was crushed by a single man using only the sword, what kind of joke would the heavenly sword sacred land become? Wunyan still hasn't come out of seclusion. The sacred lord frowned. The moment the thought crossed his mind, a resonant chorus of sword cries suddenly erupted throughout the heavenly sword sacred land. The crowd from heavenly sword sacred land erupted in joy. It's senior brother Mu coming out of seclusion. Senior brother Mu ranks 4th on the southern domain heavenly prodigy list. With him taking action, he will surely crush this arrogant fool. But, can senior brother Mu really defeat him? Of course he can. Senior brother Mu is the #1 genius of our heavenly sword sacred land's younger generation. Every prodigy of heavenly sword sacred land pinned all their hopes on Mu Wunyan. Yet even they had to admit, this madman who dared challenge the entire younger generation of heavenly sword sacred land was frighteningly powerful. Under countless expectant gazes, vast sword chi unfurled into a soaring path that pierced the heavens. At the far end of the path walked a young man wearing a feathered crown. An ancient sword hung at his waist, faint crimson patterns pulsed across its surface like breathing. The sword seemed alive. Mu Wunyan, current sequence sacred son of heavenly sword sacred land. Before reaching the age of 20, he had already broken through to the profound connection realm. More importantly, he wielded the legendary supreme sword left behind by the Imperial sword dynasty, Dust Return Sword. Legend claimed the sword had been forged from the sword path and physical body of the Imperial sword dynasty's founding ancestor. The forging method had long been lost. The first sword master, Chen, had once relied on this very blade to fight 5 quasi-saints in succession, slaying 2, heavily wounding 1, before finally perishing from exhaustion. Afterward, Dust Return Sword vanished from the world. Only 10 years ago did Mu Wunyan appear out of nowhere, and with him, Dust Return Sword returned to the world. Mu Wunyan looked down from above. Beneath his sword-like brows burned an arrogant, untamed light that brooked no equals. He swept a contemptuous gaze across the defeated true disciples of Heavenly Sword Sacred Land who had fallen to Chen and snorted coldly. A bunch of trash. After cultivating for so long, you can't even handle an outsider. Do I really have to handle this myself? Then his eyes settled on Chen. With open disdain, he declared, so it's you, the one who dares challenge the younger generation of our Heavenly Sword Sacred Land? Chen raised an eyebrow. He genuinely found it hard to believe that this person was truly the most outstanding disciple of Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's current generation. What a pitiful sight. Mu Wunyan mistook Chen's silence for fear. He turned his head and announced grandly, the dignity of my sacred land cannot be lightly trampled. If you lose to me, I demand that you shatter your own sword heart. Do you dare accept this wager? Chen looked at the supremely confident Mu Wunyan and gave a soft laugh. If you lose, I want that sword. He pointed directly at the Dust Return sword hanging at Mu Wunyan's waist. Mu Wunyan's expression changed slightly, but he still agreed without hesitation. Fine. If you can defeat me, the sword is yours. If you lose, you will shatter your sword heart and never hold a blade again. Mu Wunyan had absolute confidence in his own strength. Chen nodded. A trace of seriousness finally appeared in his eyes. Stolen from Royal Road, this story should be reported if encountered on Amazon. Mu Wunyan's sword path realm was, at best, only slightly stronger than the true disciples of other sacred lands. But the moment he grasped the sword at his waist, Chen felt a terrifying sword aura awaken from within Mu Wunyan's body. Within Dust Return Sword lay the fused sword insights of his sixth life as Chen and Chen Daoyuan, already elevated to an entirely different level. Under the enhancement of the two sword paths, Mu Wunyan underwent a transformation. Golden sword chi radiated from his body. His hair whipped wildly. Sword chi crisscrossed the air. Chen leaped down from the white horse. His azure robes fluttered. The long sword at his waist left its sheath, calm as still water, without any unusual phenomena. It looked like an utterly ordinary mortal weapon. Yet the sight made Mu Wunyan feel as though he faced a great enemy. This sword intent, ever-changing, intricate, and profound. In an instant, their sword chi collided. Sword intents clashed fiercely, forming a terrifying barrier of sword chi around them. Dense sword lights interwove so thickly that no one could see clearly what was happening inside. But everyone knew, this was destined to be a brutal, earth-shaking battle. Mu Wunyan could not understand why his terrifying divine abilities were always dispelled so effortlessly by Chen with a single ordinary-looking strike, whether a chop, a slash, or a lift. Every sword seemed simple, yet carried an extraordinary force. Why is this happening? In his growing agitation, Mu Wunyan poured every ounce of his vital energy into Dust Return Sword, hoping to win through its power. Seeing this, disappointment flickered in Chen's eyes. He held his sword horizontally across his chest. In the next moment, the sky changed. Everyone witnessed an unbelievable scene. Within the entire Heavenly Sword Sacred Land, every sword artifact suddenly resonated. They all turned in one direction, as though paying homage. This is the sword of utmost sincerity. How is this possible? How could someone so young have already reached this step in the sword path? Even that sword madman back then never. We have all underestimated this person. Who in the world is he? The sword Dao was flawless. With that single stroke from Chen, the world seemed to lose all color, everything faded to monochrome gray. A sound like tearing space rang out. Then color bled back into existence. On the ground lay a figure in tattered robes, drenched in blood. Mu Wunyan stared blankly ahead. He had lost. It must be the sword in your hand. You only won because of superior weaponry. Mu Wunyan roared in refusal to accept reality. But as the words left his mouth, he watched in disbelief as the divine sword, in Chen's grip, far surpassing the Dust Return Sword in his eyes, began to dissolve bit by bit until nothing remained. Chen shook his head with faint regret. As expected, a sword bought with a single spirit stone really is poor quality. Fortunately, I won a decent replacement. Under Mu Wunyan's incredulous gaze, Chen raised a hand. The Dust Return Sword flew from the ground straight into his palm. Mu Wunyan had no time to react. Chen's calm voice drifted past his ear. The wager is settled. This sword now belongs to me. And one more thing, your sword Dao lacks sincerity. You rely too heavily on external objects and carry too many distracting thoughts. Chen stored the Dust Return Sword away and prepared to leave the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. His purpose here had been fulfilled. One man had single-handedly crushed the younger generation of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. Though he had killed no one, for proud young sword cultivators, this was no less devastating than having their edge broken and their spines snapped. From this day forward, their sword hearts would carry a permanent stain. He had crippled the future of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's younger generation. Su Chen mounted his white horse once more, whom Yao Miao nestled in his arms, and turned to depart. Just as he glanced back, the void ahead suddenly split open. Through the rift appeared another scene, a sword platform. A young man sat cross-legged atop it, gazing calmly at Su Chen. That single glance sent an icy chill racing through Su Chen's entire body. In that moment, he was reminded of Chao Tianming, the genius who had once been utterly sincere in his sword Dao. The disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land bowed in unison the instant they saw him. Sacred Son. The youth gave a slight nod. His eyes remained fixed on Su Chen. You and I do not belong to the same era. If I were to act against you now, it would be bullying the weak. Victory would hold no meaning. But know this, the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land has never lacked for someone who has reached the pinnacle of the sword. You alone are not qualified to break our younger generation's sword Dao spine. Wang Chen, deliver these words to Wang Yunfei. 10 years from now, I will personally travel to Central Continent and seek him out for a proper duel. With those words, the spatial rift sealed itself. The youth never once made a move. Su Chen left the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. The sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land never acted. He allowed Su Chen to depart freely. They did not belong to the same era. This was a figure from the same generation as Wang Yunfei. Like Chao Tianming of old, the sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land pursued pure sword Dao with unshakable self-confidence. Su Chen shook his head. He did not believe this sacred son could defeat Wang Yunfei. Yet as long as this sacred son lived, the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land would prosper for thousands of years. Should he fall, the sacred land would be finished. The current Heavenly Sword Sacred Land had grown overly reliant on external objects. The once pure ideal of sword Dao had long since faded. Su Chen gave a wry smile. Chao Tianming had once spoken of sincerity in the sword, that had been the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's founding principle. Who could have foreseen that the sacred land of today had already lost that original spirit? Su Chen gently stroked the dust-returned sword in his hand, feeling a complex emotion rise within him. This blade had been forged from his sixth life body. Tempered by Shen Daoyuan's sword qi over countless years, it had evolved into a true divine weapon of the sword path, faintly imbued with a saintly aura. It stood only one step away from becoming a true saint artifact. Unfortunately, that final step had never been taken. The rise of the Imperial sword dynasty had offended too many powers. They refused to allow Shen Daoyuan to advance further and joined forces to ambush and kill him. The dust-returned sword trembled faintly, emitting a mournful hum. Thousands of years had turned so many things to dust, buried in forgotten, withered places. Su Chen continued his journey onward. Not long after, a single piece of news swept across the entire southern barbarian lands. A mysterious azure-robed youth riding a white horse had, single-handedly, crushed the younger generation of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land so thoroughly they could no longer raise their heads. He had even seized the legendary divine weapon of the Imperial sword dynasty that once ruled the southern barbarian lands, the dust-returned sword. Every sword cultivator in the southern barbarian lands turned their attention toward him. The dust-returned sword, the blade that had once swept the southern barbarian lands and nearly established a saint dynasty. Whoever wielded it would surely become the lord of all swords under heaven. The Heavenly Sword Sacred Land concealed far too much. They hid the fact that Mu Wunyan, holder of the dust-returned sword, had been defeated. They concealed Su Chen's identity as a member of the Central Continent's Wang clan. Instead, they quietly spread rumors, borrowing the hands of others to kill. Even if they failed, they intended to make Su Chen's life miserable. Sword cultivators from across the land gathered. Many were willing to take the risk, kill the youth and seize the dust-returned sword. Su Chen stretched lazily. The white horse beneath him stomped down, crushing the skull of yet another black-robed assassin who had collapsed gasping on the ground. This was already the 30th group of attackers they had encountered on the road. Ahead lay the greatest power in the southern barbarian lands, the Ascension Sacred Land. It was currently the strongest force in the southern barbarian lands, and even across the 5 domains of Heavenly Profound, it ranked among the top. Yet when Su Chen arrived at the gates of the Ascension Sacred Land, he found. Love this novel? Read it on Royal Road to ensure the author gets credit. Young Master Wang, forgive us, we already know your purpose. But, you are one step too late. Most of our true disciples are currently away from the sect on missions. They have gone to vie for an opportunity. The remaining disciples are hardly worthy opponents for you. What do you think? Would you prefer to wait for our true disciples to return, or perhaps come back another day? Su Chen looked at the smiling, amiable elder of the Ascension Sacred Land and immediately fell speechless. This was far too coincidental. Were they treating him like a child? The Ascension Sacred Land had simply sent all their true disciples out on training expeditions. No one could have possibly known in advance that Su Chen was coming to pay a visit, technically flawless. But Su Chen understood perfectly, as long as he remained within the Ascension Sacred Land for even a single day, those true disciples would never return. The ordinary inner disciples and the lower-ranked true disciples on the prodigy list were beneath his notice. He had no interest in bullying them. He had come to the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land under a hidden identity for one reason only, he could not swallow the grudge. In his sixth life, he had fought and bled for the heavenly sword sacred land. When the Imperial sword dynasty fell, not only did they stand by and watch, but they even kicked him when he was down. Though he was no longer Chen, the karma of the Imperial sword dynasty still demanded repayment. He bore no personal enmity toward the Ascension sacred land and had no intention of provoking them needlessly. Their stance was clear, they couldn't defeat him, but they could hide. After the ruthless way he had dismantled the heavenly sword sacred land's younger generation, no sect wanted their own disciples to suffer the same fate. And after he had carved a bloody path straight from one sacred land to another, his infamous reputation preceded him. Chen could understand their caution, yet he still sighed inwardly. Back when Gu Yendan, once the most domineering figure of his era, became sacred lord of the Ascension sacred land, something had changed. The sacred land no longer acted with the same unrestrained arrogance. Perhaps after witnessing so many familiar faces fall in the great war between the western regions and southern barbarian lands, after seeing nearly every peerless prodigy of his generation perish, Gu Yendan had begun to value survival above all else. However, His Highness the Sacred Sun returned to the sect not long ago. If young Master Wang has any interest, I can pass word to him. Chen's eyelids lifted slightly. Then he turned and left without another word. They wanted him, a profound connection realm cultivator, to challenge someone from Wang Yunfei's generation. A peak void refining expert, possibly even one who had already stepped into the Nirvana realm, bearing a divine physique. That wasn't a spar. That was suicide. Chen had no interest in seeking abuse. The Ascension Sacred Land's response told him everything he needed to know. The rest of the Southern Barbarian Land's powers would likely react the same way, finding every excuse to be absent the moment he arrived. The Southern Barbarian Lands held no further appeal for him. There were geniuses in this era who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Wang Yunfei, but in the Southern Barbarian Lands, only the Ascension Sacred Land possessed a divine physique talent. Unfortunately, they had chosen to hide him away rather than let him face Chen. There was nothing Chen could do about it. The journey from Central Continent to the Southern Barbarian Lands had taken 2 full years of detours and delays. Now, Chen set his course for the Eastern Wasteland. Why the Eastern Wasteland? The Northern Desert was simply too far from the Southern Barbarian Lands. As for the Western regions, his little sister from his previous life, Zhou Hanchan, was almost certainly still alive there. She possessed the devouring divine physique, something even more terrifying than the primordial Tao Tai physique. The technique she cultivated seemed more refined and complete than the heaven-devouring earth-swallowing divine art. And lurking somewhere in that domain was an old monster who filled even Chen with dread. Stirring up trouble there without sufficient preparation could easily lead to an unclear, unjust death. Even the Wang clan would be powerless to intervene. Half a year later, Chen arrived in the Eastern Wasteland. The first thing he did upon arrival was gather information. 500 years had passed since his second-to-last life. The Eastern Wasteland's overall landscape had not changed dramatically. The only truly regrettable news was this. 500 years ago, the Peerless Pill Venerable, once hailed across Heavenly Profound as the cultivator with the greatest chance of becoming an alchemy saint, had ventured into the extraterritorial void in search of a breakthrough opportunity, and never returned to the prison-suppressing sacred land. The loss left countless Eastern Wasteland powerhouses grieving to this day. Chen followed the flow of old memories, crossing tens of thousands of li until he reached the Heavenly Origin dynasty. With the rise of the prison-suppressing sacred land, what had once been an ordinary dynasty had transformed into one of the Eastern Wasteland's colossal powers. The Li clan produced countless prodigies. The Imperial Apex shocked the world technique, left behind in his 6th life, had eventually circled back into the hands of the Li clan after many twists and turns. Even the once small Xia clan had grown into an ancient family. Within the prison-suppressing sacred land, quite a few held positions of real authority. As for the Dragon Firmament dynasty, old acquaintances were nowhere to be found. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed. Even the small village from long ago had long since been swallowed by sprawling, prosperous towns. Here once lived a supreme alchemy venerable. Outside the city stood a towering bronze statue of the Peerless Alchemy Venerable. Everywhere inside the walls, storytellers recounted legends of his deeds. Chen gave a faint smile. He listened quietly to the embellished tales spun by the storyteller, then let out a soft sigh and walked away. 3 full years had passed on this journey. It was time to challenge the top prodigies of the Eastern Wasteland. The Eastern Wasteland was in its golden age. Prodigies gathered like clouds. In the past, when Chen had participated in such a grand event, he could only look up at others as though they were distant stars. A member of Central Continent's Wang clan, the younger brother of that person has actually come to our Eastern Wasteland. The major powers jointly hosting the Prodigy Assembly exchanged uncertain glances when they saw the unfamiliar name suddenly appear on the roster. They had heard at least some rumors about what happened in the Southern Barbarian Lands. This little brat is treating our Eastern Wasteland the same way he treated the Southern Barbarian Lands, as a whetstone for his martial path. One of the 12 Sacred Lands leaders understood the situation and gave a cold laugh. Since this little fellow from the Wang clan wants to use our Eastern Wasteland to sharpen his blade, why can't we use him in return? Let our younger generation experience the martial Tao of Central Continent's prodigies firsthand. Aren't you worried those kids will have their Tao hearts shattered? That brat was ruthless, practically crippled the entire younger generation of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land in the Southern Barbarian Lands. The Southern Barbarian Lands have grown weaker and weaker. If a martial cultivator's Tao heart isn't firm enough, our eastern wasteland must never follow in their footsteps. Tempering the younger ones now, letting them understand early that there are always people stronger in heavens beyond heavens, is actually a good thing. Otherwise, if they grow too arrogant and later encounter true Tao struggles, they might collapse completely. Don't forget, Heavenly Ruin's Sacred Land Supreme Monster has already emerged. He intends to step onto the path of the Supreme Tao in this era, and that person from the central continent is unavoidable. Using this younger brother as a preview to gauge the strength of that one isn't a bad idea. We can prepare in advance. Did you know this text is from a different site? Read the official version to support the creator. Chen soon received the notification. The Eastern Wasteland had approved his participation in the Prodigy Assembly. These old fellows, they must have some trump card. Which ancient sacred land has unsealed one of its sealed monsters? Chen narrowed his eyes. Having once been a high-ranking elder in a sacred land and presided over such assemblies himself, he knew the rules inside and out. He had expected some difficulties before gaining entry. Their swift agreement was far too smooth. If there wasn't something fishy going on, he wouldn't believe it. This assembly was likely being used as a stage to announce the emergence of some supreme monster. Still, Chen felt no fear. He had come precisely to verify his martial path and forge his own road. Crossing blades with a supreme monster, win or lose, would bring him immense benefit. This was a mutually beneficial transaction in disguise. When the day of the Prodigy Assembly arrived, geniuses from across the Eastern Wasteland gathered. The 12 sacred lands had effectively become 13, joined by prodigies from every ancient clan and great family. Chen felt genuine excitement. He sensed several powerful convictions, sharp, unrestrained, each one a top-tier genius destined to stir the winds of the era. Miao Miao trembled in his arms as wave after wave of terrifying auras swept past. She couldn't help but wonder inwardly. Just what kind of person is Master? Chen flicked her forehead lightly and gave no answer. The Prodigy Assembly began. Chen's first opponent stepped onto the stage. A figure radiating cyan light like polished jade strode forward, dragon-like steps, tiger-like poise. Chen was mildly surprised. Few people could cultivate the azure jade sacred scripture to such a level. The forces hosting the Prodigy Assembly clearly intended to use this disciple of the azure jade sacred land to test the true depths of his strength. You are very strong. You will be one of the great enemies on my path, Tian Hui. Tian Hui, the prodigy of the azure jade sacred land, had always considered himself among the top 3 of his generation within his sect. Yet standing before Chen, he felt an abyss-like presence, deadly silent and unfathomable. Chen gave a slight nod. Make your move. The moment the words fell, Tian Hui shifted his palm into a fist. Azure light illuminated the 9 heavens as he closed the distance in an instant. Clearly, he knew Chen was a sword cultivator and had no intention of giving him the chance to unleash any of his myriad techniques. Yet what shocked Tian Hui was that Chen showed no sign of drawing the dust-returned sword at his waist. A casual sweep of his palm carried the profound mysteries of countless martial arts. Those mysteries flickered into existence and shattered just as quickly. When the fist finally struck forward, its momentum was utterly unstoppable. The collision of 2 terrifying fist intents drew cheers from the watching crowd. Several powerful prodigies had their eyes light up. Everyone speaks of the supreme monster born to the central continent's Wang clan, great emperor qualifications, destined to suppress an entire era. But they all overlook one thing: this little fellow from the Wang family is no simple character either. His martial Tao is on the verge of entering the realm of true mastery, walking a path entirely his own. Becoming a saint in the future is only a matter of time. If he hadn't been born in this great era, if he weren't overshadowed by Wang Yunfei's brilliance, he himself would have become a legend of his generation. The elders and leaders of various major forces watching from the sideline sighed inwardly with emotion. A genius who had begun to forge his own path, as long as he did not fall, would inevitably reach the endpoint of the road to sainthood. Chen was clearly only one step away from entering the realm of true Tao mastery. The azure light shattered. Tian Hui gave a bitter laugh. I thought your sword Tao was your greatest reliance. I was wrong. I never expected your fists to be this terrifying. I am not your match. Chen withdrew his fist and spoke calmly. One method mastered opens the door to all methods. In my spare time, I practiced some fist and palm techniques, and they naturally came together. Tian Hui shook his head. It sounded easy, but in truth, how could it be? For an ordinary martial cultivator, walking a single path to mastery was already the limit of a lifetime. Who had the leisure to walk a second? After defeating a powerful true disciple of the azure jade sacred land, Chen felt no pride. Tian Hui was strong, but he was not among the absolute top tier of the Eastern Wasteland's prodigies. At this moment, Chen sensed countless blazing gazes fixed upon him, each one brimming with overwhelming battle intent. His strength had finally earned their recognition. 1 battle, 2 battles, 3 battles. Chen continued until he finally faced the first true pinnacle genius of the Eastern Wasteland. Thunder Sound Sacred Land, Lei Tianxin. A bald young monk with narrowed eyes, clad in a simple cassock. One hand gripped a monk's staff, the other pressed together before his chest. Chen glanced up at him. Beneath that calm exterior hid a terrifying force capable of tearing everything apart. His cultivation had reached the peak of profound connection realm, just like Su Chen now, only one step away from void refining. Thunder Elephant Sacred Physique. Thunder Sound Sacred Land has truly produced an extraordinary figure this generation. Compared to Mu Wunyan of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land, Lei Tianqin was clearly far superior. The two were not on the same level at all. Su Chen sighed inwardly. This would be his first true, head-on clash with a sacred physique monster. The dust-returned sword trembled for the first time, resonating in excitement, its edge finally revealing its true sharpness. Benefactor, please. Lei Tianqin formed a gesture, signaling the start of the fight. In the same instant, purple thunder light flashed in his narrowed eyes. The entire battlefield became a sea of lightning. The phantom of an ancient thunder elephant materialized behind him, like a primordial deity descended into the present age. Su Chen gripped the dust-returned sword. Insights from 3 lifetimes of Sword Dao fused into one. For a fleeting moment, he stepped into an entirely new realm of Sword Dao. The space around him became his sword domain, within it, the Sword Dao reigned supreme. Beams of radiant sword light pierced through the thunder ocean. Lei Tianqin raised his fist. Golden light bloomed across his body. His physical form had been tempered to an extreme, rivaling ancient divine beasts. One punch shattered space itself. An ordinary void refining cultivator would turn to bloody mist under such a strike, terrifying beyond measure. Thunder Sound Sacred Land had once stood at the pinnacle. Its body refining method was ranked among the 10 strongest in history. Unfortunately, with the changing of eras, part of the technique had been lost. Body cultivation gradually gave way to law cultivation, forcing this once mighty power to settle into second-tier status in the eastern wasteland. Facing Su Chen's sword chi, Lei Tianqin simply raised a hand and tore it apart. Golden blood seeped from his palm. The wounds caused by the sword chi healed instantly. He charged straight into Su Chen's sword domain. Though body cultivators had declined, their conviction had never wavered. Inside Su Chen's sword domain, Lei Tianqin tore through the sword chi with raw force. Thunder light exploded as he clashed against the indestructible sword chi. Yet even with his invincible divine strength, he was still too slow. Their clash lasted only an instant. In that single moment, Lei Tianqin failed to close the distance to Su Chen's body. What greeted him instead was an unmatched sword beam. The purple thunder ocean across the battlefield turned ashen gray, as though the world had frozen into a still painting. Return to dust. Reading on this site. This novel is published elsewhere. Support the author by seeking out the original. A storm of sword chi swept outward. Lei Tianqin raised his staff. The thunder elephant phantom fused into a barrier that met the unstoppable sword beam head-on. Body cultivation has truly declined after all. With a soft sigh, Lei Tianqin's staff snapped in two. His body was cleaved cleanly at the waist. Blood dyed the arena floor. A powerful elder from Thunder Sound Sacred Land immediately intervened, using divine abilities to forcibly rejoin Lei Tianqin's body. Pale-faced and expressionless, Lei Tianqin walked off the stage. Su Chen watched him leave, then sheathed the dust-returned sword. A wave of extreme exhaustion surged through his body. His expression remained unchanged as he stepped down from the platform, but inwardly he gave a wry laugh. Body cultivators, really are tough. That final sword strike had felt like chopping against ancient heavenly gold, indestructible. Had the sword Dao intent of the dust-returned sword not been sharp enough, he might not have broken Lei Tianqin's defense. But, that was all. With Lei Tianqin's defeat, astonishment rippled through the crowd of prodigies. Lei Tianqin's Thunder Elephant sacred physique ranked among the absolute top of his generation. Yet now he had lost to this young man from the central continent. Su Chen turned his gaze toward another battlefield. There, a handsome young man sat cross-legged, already finished with his match. Sensing Su Chen's look, he lifted his head and gave a slight nod in acknowledgement. What terrifying martial Dao intent! With that single glance, Su Chen knew, this was the hidden trump card those old monsters of the eastern wasteland had been waiting to reveal. They were utterly confident that this youth would defeat him. The realm of true Dao mastery. This was absolutely a monster who had already stepped into the realm of true Dao. Su Chen drew a deep breath, suppressing the surging battle intent within him. Against such a figure, he had to return to his absolute peak before he could fight with everything he had. The youth seemed to sense Su Chen's thoughts. Neither of them spoke. They simply waited in tacit understanding, for this peak confrontation. 1 week later, Su Chen opened his eyes. Heavenly Ruined Sacred Land, Ling Wuya. Central Continent Wang Clan, Wang Chen. Ling Wuya gave a slight nod. I will defeat you. Then I will go challenge Wang Yunfei. His tone was calm and even, as though he had never truly placed Su Chen in his eyes. Su Chen smiled. He felt no anger at being underestimated. This opponent possessed a sword Dao conviction even firmer than that of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land Sacred Sun. He was an incomparably powerful rival, worthy of genuine respect. Neither wasted words. Su Chen drew the dust-returned sword. Ling Wuya casually reached into the void and drew forth a divine blade of his own. The moment their swords met, sword chi raged across the battlefield. Terrifying sword intents tore at one another. Return to dust. Sword ruins. Su Chen's sword intent was immediately suppressed by an overwhelming force, a sword Dao he had never encountered before. He abandoned his sword and shifted to palms. Ling Wuya mirrored him perfectly, discarding his blade for palms as well. Palm intents collided like dazzling fireworks. Then both shifted again, to fists, to spears, to blades, each weapon form flowing seamlessly into the next. From the spectator stands, several elders watched the evenly matched exchange in stunned silence. What is Ling Wuya doing? With his strength, defeating someone who hasn't fully grasped the realm of true Tao should not be this difficult. He's helping that little fellow from the Wang clan fuse all his martial techniques and walk his own path. Has he gone mad? This is his enemy, why is he feeding him moves? Ling Wuya, truly worthy of being the supreme prodigy of heavenly ruin's sacred land. Is this the bearing and pride of a supreme genius? Su Chen gradually sank fully into the exchange with Ling Wuya. 9 lifetimes of experiences. 9 vastly different paths. The fleeting insights he had grasped between life and death in his previous incarnations now became increasingly clear. He sensed something forming inside him, a seed. Countless martial Tao comprehensions and martial wills converged, growing firmer and more resolute. This was the conviction that even if the entire world was wrong, he alone was right. On the martial path, only belief remained. As the golden seed took shape, all of Su Chen's martial Tao paths suddenly became clear. Techniques that once required effort now came effortlessly. The road ahead was no longer shrouded in fog. He would ultimately step into the supreme realm and stand above all living beings. Thank you for the gift of Tao attainment. I, Wang Chen, owe you a favor. Su Chen understood completely. Ling Wuya had deliberately helped him shatter the barrier to the realm of true Tao and step onto his own unique path. Ling Wuya gave a faint smile. You did not disappoint me. In the next clash, do not hold back. Entering the realm of true Tao meant stepping onto the path of becoming a saint. On that path, only one person could reach the end. This was the purest form of martial Tao struggle. 2 monsters who had each forged their own path clashed. Every move, every technique distilled the essence of hundreds of martial arts. Though both remained at the profound connection realm, the power they unleashed far exceeded the limits of that boundary. For prodigies of their caliber, fighting above their realm was as natural as breathing. The watching prodigy stared without blinking, frozen like statues, afraid to miss even the smallest detail, even though most of what unfolded before them felt like heavenly script, impossible to comprehend. 2 young monsters who have both stepped into the realm of true Tao, such a sight is rare indeed. If even a fraction of their exchange can be grasped by these juniors, it will benefit their martial paths immeasurably. The elders of the various major powers sighed inwardly with emotion. This was the true golden age of martial Tao, prodigies and monsters abounded, and even divine and sacred physiques were reduced to mere supporting roles. As the battle with Ling Wuya deepened, Su Chen's understanding of the martial path grew ever clearer. He set aside the dust-returned sword and brought 2 fingers together in a point. This single move fused every martial art he had ever mastered across lifetimes, ever-changing, profound, like a supreme deity cleansing the mortal dust. Ling Wuya felt the pressure mount. He shouted. What a brilliant move. I, Ling Wuya, was born in the final Dharma age after the great emperor's ascension, when all life fell silent. I stood invincible across the eastern wasteland, central continent, and all 9 heavenly domains. Thus, I sealed myself away, awaiting the arrival of a new great era. I never expected my first true battle would be against an opponent like you. My blood is truly boiling. This is what a true age of contention should be. Ha 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 ha. Facing the divine, world-cleansing power, Ling Wuya threw back his head and laughed wildly, utterly unrestrained. Between his brows, a golden heavenly eye slowly opened, brimming with supreme laws. A beam of divine light descended like heavenly punishment. Their strongest strikes collided. The protective barrier around the battlefield creaked under the strain. Who won? The audience could see nothing clearly, yet everyone knew, one of them must have prevailed in that clash. After a long moment, 2 figures stepped down from the martial stage. This battle, I lost. Su Chen spoke with complete sincerity. Ling Wuya was genuinely terrifying. Possessing a peerless divine physique and having stepped into the realm of true Tao so early, even his mental fortitude was monstrous. Unless he died prematurely, reaching the pinnacle of sainthood was inevitable. Ling Wuya shook his head. I merely relied on the advantage of my divine physique. If Brother Wang also possessed one, the outcome might have been different. His tone was earnest. He was not making excuses for Su Chen. To step into the realm of true Tao at such a young age was already a rarity throughout history, even surpassing Ling Wuya in terms of comprehension. Unfortunately, such a genius bore only an ordinary spirit physique rather than a divine one. Otherwise, he would surely be no weaker than Ling Wuya himself. Unlawfully taken from Royal Road, this story should be reported if seen on Amazon. Facing Ling Wuya's modesty, Su Chen gave a wry smile. He understood that his achievement stemmed purely from 9 lifetimes of accumulated experience, allowing him to forge his own path. Compared to a monster like Ling Wuya, who had once stood supreme in his era, there was still no comparison. He sighed softly. A loss is a loss. On the martial path, defeat is not shameful. What is shameful is failing to grow from defeat, or collapsing entirely after a single setback. Hearing these words, Ling Wuya fell into thought for a moment. Then he laughed freely. Brother Wang, your state of mind is truly admirable. I, Ling Wuya, consider you a friend. If you ever have the time, come visit my heavenly ruined sacred land. We can discuss the Tao together, each illuminating the other. Su Chen's heart stirred. To discuss the Tao with a monster like Ling Wuya would be an immense opportunity, perfect for refining and perfecting his own path. He nodded. I had the same thought. Since Brother Wuya extends the invitation, I will gladly impose. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the two who had just fought life and death moments ago now spoke warmly, laughing and praising one another. Was this the true bearing of geniuses? Su Chen set off toward the heavenly ruined sacred land with his white horse and Hu Miao Miao in tow. He had originally planned to visit the northern desert during the remaining time, but he realized that whatever gains he might find there would pale in comparison to discussing the Tao with Ling Wuya. So he abandoned the idea. He had once intended to track down Yu Shuquang's whereabouts, but after stepping into the realm of true Tao, his state of mind had subtly shifted. Now he wanted to witness for himself just how dazzling the creator of that alternate immortality method, still alive and enduring through the ages, truly was. This was a grand era. Within a single millennium, monsters with great emperor qualifications like Wang Yunfei had appeared. Ahead still loomed Zhou Hanchan, Lin Zhan, Fang Bubi, Li Shenhua, and the shadowy existence who had schemed against the entire western regions, treating all living beings as chess pieces. Some carried immense destiny. Others were peerless prodigies of unmatched brilliance. And this was merely within the heavenly profound domain. Beyond the domain lay countless races in the extraterritorial void. Geniuses were as numerous as stars in the night sky. A grand era never lacked for talent. To be born in such an age was fortunate, countless geniuses shone brightly, rivals abounded, and loneliness was impossible. Yet to be born in a grand era was also tragic. Any one of these monsters, placed in another millennium or 10,000 years, would have left an indelible mark in the annals of history, revered by all generations. In this era, however, their light would be eclipsed by too many others, rendering them seemingly ordinary. In the end, only one person could be remembered by the world, covering all others in shadow. Su Chen arrived at heavenly ruined sacred land. As the foremost sacred land of the eastern wasteland, its foundation was unfathomably deep. Su Chen and Ling Wuya discussed the Tao together. Strange phenomena appeared ceaselessly between heaven and earth, golden lotuses of the Tao bloomed from time to time, natural laws flowed freely, and boundless Tao rhythms scattered outward. Gradually, more and more disciples of heavenly ruined sacred land came to listen respectfully. They gathered outside the mountain, quietly receiving the lingering echoes of the two men's Tao voices. Even those faint remnants were enough to bring them immense benefit. Over time, more and more disciples began to regard Su Chen as teacher. On the mountain, Hu Miao Miao lay draped across the white horse's back, watching the two figures in the bamboo pavilion below. For several years now they had not moved a single step. To her, it felt unbearably boring. Every day, she could only amuse herself by listening to the immortal music that sounded so pleasant to her ears. Yet as time passed, something astonishing happened to Hu Miao Miao. Her cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds without her even realizing it. She was on the verge of breaking through to the void refining realm. This little creature was about to become a legendary demon sovereign. What she did not know was that if the disciples of heavenly ruined sacred land, who listened with utmost reverence, learned of her situation, their eyes would turn red with envy. To receive the Tao insights of two true Tao realm martial monsters, even the echoes alone, represented an unimaginable fortune. If it were them, they would not waste a single second, let alone treat it as mere background music. Ha! Hu Miao Miao's sleepy eyes suddenly opened wide. The lush flowers and trees on the ground had abruptly withered. Just as she thought she had imagined it, new sprouts pushed through the dead soil once more, slowly growing stronger. After so long without movement, the bamboo pavilion finally stirred. Su Chen and Ling Wuya opened their eyes at the same moment. In that instant, terrifying auras erupted from both of them, transforming into twin pillars of light that shot straight into the heavens. The disciples and elders of heavenly ruined sacred land all noticed the scene. What terrifying auras! This is probably the strongest void refining breakthrough momentum our heavenly ruined sacred land has seen in 10,000 years. Su Chen and Ling Wuya had simultaneously polished their paths to perfection and broken through to the void refining realm. Yet it did not stop there. Their auras continued surging wildly. Su Chen's cultivation soared all the way to the 5th layer of void refining, constructing 5 layers of cave heavens. Given another 10 years, he would surely achieve nirvana venerable status and catch up to Wang Yunfei's generation. Su Chen gazed at the myriad phenomena manifesting around Ling Wuya. A divine palace appeared, within which countless illusory figures emerged. Some wielded spears, some blades, some swords, some axes, others fought barehanded. Every single one of those divine shadows brimmed with unparalleled intent. The heavenly ruins' divine physique was truly blessed by the heavens. Ling Wuya's aura did not halt at the 5th layer of void refining. Having sealed himself away for tens of thousands of years, all that accumulated energy now transformed into cultivation. With Su Chen's mutual verification refining his path even further, he surged straight into the nirvana realm in one breath. After a long moment, Ling Wuya opened his eyes. His aura gradually steadied. A look of pure delight crossed his face. I never imagined there would be a fellow Tao friend walking the same path as me. For tens of thousands of years, countless teachers and seniors advised me against it, fusing myriad laws, refining the heavens, something impossible for mortal power. Yet I firmly believe this was the true invincible Tao. Su Chen had likewise never expected that Ling Wuya's path aligned so perfectly with his own. Fuse myriad laws. Refine the heavens. Stand supreme alone. All paths under the skies become nourishment. This was the ultimate supreme road, and the very path Su Chen intended to walk across lifetime after lifetime. With the cheat of endless reincarnation, he possessed thousands, tens of thousands, countless years to perfect it. But Ling Wuya had only one life. Even a great saint lived no more than 10,000 years. A quasi-emperor, perhaps 30,000. The legendary supreme emperors who suppressed the world endured only 100,000. To fuse myriad laws, refine all heavenly paths, and become the strongest body, how difficult was that? Especially in such a grand era. Su Chen respected Ling Wuya's choice. He would never deny his own path. To have a companion walking the same road, what greater fortune could there be? Even if their destined end was that only one could survive, on the path to becoming an emperor, between those of the same Tao, there was no higher or lower, only life and death. To hear the Tao in the morning and die content in the evening, perhaps it is no more than this. Su Chen sighed with genuine emotion. Ling Wuya fell into thought for a moment before speaking. The Emperor Palace of Central Continent has already sent an invitation. In the near future, the young Emperor Wang Yunfei will hold his grand wedding. He has issued challenges to prodigies across all 5 domains, the strongest shall match the most beautiful. Unauthorized duplication, this tale has been taken without consent. Report sightings. Su Chen spread his hands helplessly. That has always been his personality, challenging every monster across the 5 domains to forge his invincible path. I'm sure Brother Wuya will not miss such a spectacular battle. Ling Wuya nodded, his tone brimming with confidence. Of course. I emerged from seclusion precisely to see who among the monsters of this grand era can stand above the rest. How dull would such a prosperous age be without me? Wang Yunfei wishes to use the heroes of the world as his stepping stones. I, too, wish to see just how much weight this so-called number 1 of the era, the one called Young Emperor, truly carries. Seeing Ling Wuya's unshakable confidence, Su Chen nodded seriously. Ling Wuya's eyes lit up. Does Brother Wang also believe I can defeat your elder brother? Su Chen. He shook his head. I don't know how strong my brother truly is. He has never lost to any enemy, never even taken them seriously. Ling Wuya showed no disappointment. Instead, Su Chen's words ignited his competitive fire. Then it is only because he has not yet met me. If he does, I will make Wang Yunfei taste the flavor of defeat. Su Chen felt a strange sensation hearing Ling Wuya speak of defeating his own elder brother in this life. By reason and emotion, he ought to stand with Wang Yunfei. After breaking through in cultivation, Su Chen did not linger in heavenly ruin's sacred land. Accompanied by Hu Miao Miao and the White Horse, he departed amid the reluctant farewells and pleas of the many disciples who had come to revere him. He returned to Central Continent. The Central Continent had changed over the past 10 years. 3 invincible figures from a previous era had emerged into the world, each proclaiming their intent to challenge Wang Yunfei. The prodigy rankings had become a battlefield of dragons and tigers. The top 10 were without exception bearers of legendary divine or sacred physiques, true prodigies of a grand era, falling like rain. You are Wang Chen. On the road back to the Wang clan, Su Chen was intercepted. A demonically handsome young man sat high upon a throne forged of profound iron, gazing down at Su Chen with faint indifference. Who are you? Su Chen looked at the youth blocking his path. The visitor clearly came with ill intent. The youth's expression remained calm. It seems you truly are Wang Yunfei's younger brother, Wang Chen. The intelligence from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was accurate. Normally, a minor figure like you would not be worth my time, but you have an excellent elder brother. So I will be merciful and tell you my name, I am Ji Xianxiao. Ji Xianxiao. Su Chen was mildly surprised. This was one of the 3 invincible figures from a previous era who had recently reappeared in this age, and now he had come looking for trouble. Ji Xuanxiao's expression twisted with manic excitement as he continued. I want to be the first to challenge Wang Yunfei. I will not allow him to fall at anyone else's hands, he can only be defeated by me. You are his younger brother. If your life is in my hands, he will surely fight me. Su Chen shook his head. If that is your reason, then this battle is utterly meaningless. Even if I die, Wang Yunfei will not appear because of it. He understood Wang Yunfei's character all too well. To a man so supremely domineering, even if Su Chen were his only blood sibling and died at an enemy's hand, Wang Yunfei would not seek revenge, he would simply sneer and call him trash. So this fight held no purpose. Ji Xuanxiao's expression cooled slightly. So you are completely useless. In that case, you can die now. Su Chen remained calm. He shook his head again and spoke softly. If you are so eager to die, you don't actually need to seek out Wang Yunfei. Ji Xianxiao blinked. What do you mean by that? Su Chen drew the dust-returned sword at his waist. His tone stayed even, yet it carried the edge of 10,000 blades piercing the heart, sharp and unrestrained. If you wish to die, I can be merciful and send you on your way. Ji Xianxiao stared in disbelief. Then he threw his head back and laughed wildly. You? With what? How amusing, truly amusing. Though you cannot force Wang Yunfei to fight me, I can still forgive you. You are far too entertaining. You say you will make me die. Ha 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 ha, you think you can make me die? Ji Xuanxiao's body suddenly expanded, growing towering and demonic, like a fiend descending upon the mortal world. Someone as interesting as you, it would be a pity if you did not become my puppet. His voice thundered with madness. In a grand era, countless smaller eras existed. Under the suppression of a single emperor, the cultivation paths of all living beings grew ever more arduous, until that emperor entered their twilight years. During the decline of an emperor, from their peak to their fall, there arose decay, dharma-ending ages, and fleeting revivals. Innumerable smaller eras produced innumerable invincible figures. Some chose to shatter their shackles and die without regret. Others, seeing no path forward, sealed themselves away to await the arrival of a new grand era. Among the invincible, some were mighty, others merely strong. Ji Xianxiao had been born in a dharma-ending age when saints no longer appeared and divine or sacred physiques were nearly extinct. He had battled and defeated every genius of his time, then sealed himself away as the undisputed invincible one, waiting for a new great era. To Su Chen, Ji Xianxiao seemed utterly laughable, like a frog at the bottom of a well, blind to the splendor of a true grand era. Su Chen drew his sword. This single strike fused his martial Dao will into a radiant sword beam unlike anything Ji Xianxiao had ever witnessed. The manic grin on the latter's face froze. One after another, the puppet-like figures, former prodigies defeated and soul-bound by Ji Xianxiao, shattered like fragile porcelain. In front of Su Chen, those once era-defining souls were no different from cannon fodder. How is this possible? How can you be this strong? Ji Xianxiao used a substitute body to evade Su Chen's killing strike and reappeared in another location, his face filled with shock. The name Wang Chen carried no weight in Central Continent, just another spoiled young master. The only reason anyone knew of him was because of his elder brother, the young Emperor Wang Yunfei, the undisputed #1 of Central Continent. Yet now this so-called spoiled brat made him feel the shadow of death. For a moment, Ji Xianxiao fell into deep self-doubt. Unfortunately for him, Su Chen had no intention of giving him time to wallow in it. He had already given Ji Xianxiao a chance. Ji Xianxiao chose to become his enemy. Between enemies, there was only life and death. Su Chen's killing intent rose steadily. Pure martial Dao will manifested around him as countless white lightning bolts intertwined. The earth trembled and cracked. Countless shattered stones floated upward, then disintegrated into dust. Ji Xianxiao stared into Su Chen's eyes, now nothing but endless white, and for the first time, his invincible conviction wavered. He might actually die here. Su Chen's figure flashed past in an instant. A casual strike carried power no weaker than a full-force Saint-grade technique. Ji Xianxiao could only grit his teeth and meet it head-on. Possessing a divine physique and never having stepped into the realm of true Dao, he still wielded godlike might within his realm. His demonic body unfolded, unleashing an array of terrifying martial techniques capable of suppressing mountains and rivers. Stolen novel, please report. Their clash produced shockwaves that flattened 10,000 meters of hills and plains. Meow. Hu Miao Miao clung desperately to the white horse's back with both paws. The horse raised a protective barrier to withstand the terrifying aftershocks, inwardly grumbling, second young master is also a terrifying monster. Only at the 6th layer of void refining, yet he can probably fight Nirvana Venerables head-on. This ancient monster who blocked our path really picked the wrong person. The violent fluctuations naturally drew the attention of everyone in the holy city. When they saw clearly who was fighting, shock rippled through the crowd. That's Ji Xianxiao, one of the 3 invincible figures who recently emerged. He's actually being suppressed in battle. Who could possibly push Ji Xianxiao to this extent? Idiot, you don't even recognize the second young master of the Wang clan. That's Wang Chen, young Emperor Wang Yunfei's own younger brother. It seems the rumors were true. Ji Xianxiao emerged and went straight to the Emperor Palace seeking a fight with Wang Yunfei. Unable to meet him, he must have decided to target Wang Yunfei's little brother, hoping to use his life as leverage to force a battle. But, why is Ji Xianxiao so weak? He's being completely suppressed. His defeat is only a matter of time. It's not that Ji Xianxiao is weak. It's that Wang Chen is simply too strong. We all underestimated him. Every move he makes flows naturally, as though he has already stepped into the legendary realm of true Dao mastery. He is no weaker than those invincible figures of old. Ji Xianxiao really kicked an iron plate this time. Under countless watchful eyes, Ji Xianxiao roared in despair. One of his arms was severed by Su Chen in a single stroke. The profound iron throne beneath him shattered into fragments. Blood soaked his entire body. His hair hung in wild disarray. In stark contrast, Su Chen appeared utterly calm and composed. Every move Ji Xianxiao made was riddled with openings in Su Chen's eyes. Even with the augmentation of his divine physique, Ji Xianxiao could only desperately parry, unable to dodge, unable to counter. Without that innate divine body and its tough hide, he would have died long ago. A divine physique was not invincible. No. I was invincible in my era. I am the one destined to fight Wang Yunfei. I am meant to walk the path to becoming an emperor. How could I die here? Ji Xuanxiao's mind shattered. Watching the azure-robed figure approach step by step, tearing through his divine body, he had no remaining means of resistance. Invincible? You don't even have your own Dao. Relying solely on a divine body, and you dare call yourself invincible? Su Chen's gaze was cold, yet it carried a trace of pity, as though he were looking at a pitiful creature. In his view, Ji Xianxiao was perhaps a little stronger than Lei Tianqin, and that was all. Compared to the sacred son of the heavenly sword sacred land or Ling Wuya of heavenly ruins sacred land, the word invincible attached to Ji Xianxiao sounded utterly laughable. It was not glory, it was mockery. And compared to the brother he intended to challenge, it was even more absurd. Perhaps from the very beginning, none of the true pinnacle prodigies had ever taken Ji Xianxiao seriously. Su Chen swung his sword. The blade severed Ji Xuanxiao's head. Sword chi annihilated his consciousness. For Su Chen, defeating, or even killing, Ji Xianxiao was nothing worth celebrating. Such a pitiful figure had never truly seen himself clearly. Even if he had been lucky enough to reach the saint realm in this life, his path would have ended there. Merely another casualty of a grand era. And he was far from the only one. Countless others, those who refused to see reality, shared the same fate. A long time passed. Only after Su Chen rode away on his white horse, disappearing into the glow of the setting sun, did the people of the holy city finally recover from their daze. Wang Chen killed Ji Xianxiao, one of the three ancient invincible figures, just like that. The Wang clan doesn't just have Wang Yunfei, two supreme prodigies from one family, terrifying. After today, the name Wang Chen will resound across the central continent. No longer merely Wang Yunfei's younger brother, but an unparalleled prodigy capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with, or even slaying, ancient monsters. 10 years later, Su Chen returned to the Wang clan. The entire clan was shaken. Their second young master had returned to central continent, and his very first act upon arrival was to slay an ancient monster. Chenner, did you truly kill Ji Xianxiao? Wang Yaochen stared at his youngest son, who sat calmly, stroking the cat in his lap. Even now, he found it hard to believe. He could sense that his child had changed profoundly after 10 years away from the central continent. Su Chen nodded. I killed Ji Xianxiao. I gave him a chance. He still chose death. So I sent him on his way. Wang Yaochen opened his mouth, then let out a helpless sigh. Ji Xianxiao was the successor of the Nether God Hall. I never imagined he would die at your hands. The Nether God Hall will not let this go quietly. For the time being, stay within the clan. We don't want any desperate dogs from the Nether God Hall jumping the wall in desperation. Su Chen nodded. The Nether God Hall had long declined. With Ji Xianxiao, their last divine physique, dead at Su Chen's hand, they would certainly refuse to accept it. The Wang clan did not fear the Nether God Hall itself, but Wang Yaochen worried about some ancient relic of that sect acting recklessly. Su Chen's current talent had clearly earned the full attention of the Wang clan. Killing Ji Xianxiao was not a major issue. Once Su Chen's cultivation advanced further, the Nether God Hall would quietly choose to forget the matter. Time passed quickly. News of Wang Yunfei's grand wedding, hosted by the Emperor Palace, swept across the entire heavenly profound domain. Even extraterritorial powers dispatched representatives to attend the celebration. Prodigies converged from every direction. Su Chen accompanied the Wang clan delegation to the Emperor Palace. The Emperor Palace had been founded by the Supreme Nine Suns' great emperor. It stood unrivaled in the cosmos. It possessed its own independent inner world, vast and boundless, crafted by the emperor over tens of thousands of years. Inside the Emperor Palace, Su Chen sensed countless terrifying auras. Among them were many at the Saint Realm. He even suspected the palace might harbor a living quasi-emperor as a final foundation. A quasi-emperor wielding an emperor weapon, how terrifying would that be? Su Chen spotted familiar faces inside the palace, the sacred son of the heavenly sword sacred land and Ling Wuya of heavenly ruins sacred land. Both noticed him as well. Ling Wuya gave a slight nod. Like the many prodigies present, his eyes burned with fierce battle intent, filled with anticipation. He was waiting for Wang Yunfei's arrival. Su Chen felt genuine curiosity. Just how strong was this elder brother of his, the one hailed as the young emperor? To call himself young emperor before the emperor path had even opened, to compare himself to the youthful days of ancient emperors, what kind of confidence was this? As Su Chen pondered, a sudden surge of auras arrived. Thousands of warriors clad in silver dragon armor marched in formation. Each one radiated terrifying killing intent. Without exception, every soldier stood at the void refining realm. The war formation they formed could likely slaughter any cultivator below the Saint Realm. As expected of the Emperor Palace's foundation. Su Chen narrowed his eyes. A force of thousands like this would be a meat grinder on any battlefield, capable of exterminating clans and stars as easily as breathing. The prestige of the Emperor Palace did not rest solely on one great emperor. In an age without saints, this silver dragon guard alone was enough to intimidate all races. The author's tale has been misappropriated, report any instances of this story on Amazon. At that moment, a golden sacred dragon descended from the sky. Its terrifying pressure was no weaker than a saint's. Atop the dragon stood two figures. One wore an ancient imperial robe embroidered with dragon patterns. His presence was domineering and natural, like an unquestionable sovereign of heaven and earth. Beside him stood a woman worthy of being called the central continent's #1 beauty. Silver and ink strands wove together like a starry river. In her pupils, sun and moon shone in unison. Her snow-white form radiated divinity that inspired worship. A single vermilion mark between her brows lent her both sanctity and allure. Every line of her body seemed carved by the heavens themselves, an absolute work of art. Truly worthy of being the central continent's foremost beauty. Fan Qingyin's appearance drew the gazes of countless martial cultivators and geniuses. How can such beauty exist in this world? Her beauty was not merely physical. It reached into the soul, perfectly matching the deepest desires of anyone who looked upon her. Unforgettable. Irreplaceable. Central Continent's #1 genius matched with Central Continent's #1 beauty. Yet Fan Qingying was the foremost beauty of heavenly profound. Wang Yunfei had challenged every prodigy across the 5 domains. The strongest matched with the most beautiful, such a union would become an immortal legend even 10,000 years from now. In the grand wedding hall of the Emperor Palace, under the gaze of countless prodigies and powerhouses from across the 5 domains, a voice suddenly rang out, sharp and unyielding. Wang Yunfei, I challenge you. Just because you dare call yourself young emperor, I, Mo Shang, am the first to refuse. Mo Shang, the invincible figure of the Northern Desert's Mo clan, charged forward without the slightest hesitation, his killing intent blazing toward Wang Yunfei. Wang Yunfei's expression did not change in the slightest. He simply extended 5 fingers. A streak of golden light flowed forth, carrying an indomitable will that cycled endlessly without fading. In an instant, the so-called invincible figure of the Mo clan was seized like a doll in his grasp. Mo Shang struggled violently. His face turned deathly pale. Cold sweat poured down as he stared up at the towering figure before him. You, how can you be this strong? Wang Yunfei's 5 fingers tightened. A wretched scream tore through the air. Mo Shang perished instantly. The elders of the Mo clan direction changed color in an instant. One roared in fury, Wang Yunfei, this was only a spar. Why did you kill the successor of my Mo clan? Wang Yunfei's gaze shifted toward them. His golden pupil seemed to contain endless galaxies birthing and extinguishing. That single glance was like a sharp blade. Even the Mo clan's great power paled and dared not meet his eyes. You mean to say, this ant-like trash was qualified to spar with me? Wang Yunfei cast a faint glance across the entire assembly. Dragon Qi manifested around him, pressing down on everyone present. Today I give you all the opportunity to challenge me, but that does not mean trash has the right to do so. If you cannot even withstand a single move from me, then die. His words caused the expressions of most martial cultivators present to change dramatically. Mo Shang had not been weak. He was an invincible figure of his era and a divine physique prodigy. Yet Wang Yunfei had crushed him like an ant passing by. In other words, anyone who could not even block a single move from Wang Yunfei would not even have the chance to admit defeat. They would simply die. Few sects or clans were willing to risk their successors on such terms, especially those whose strength fell short of even Mo Shang. They lacked even the qualification to challenge him. Yet if they withdrew, it also meant they could never surpass Wang Yunfei. Wang Yunfei, I will fight you. The debt your younger brother Wang Chen left on the younger generation of my Heavenly Sword Sacred Land, I will collect it today. The sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land stepped forward first. He had once declared he would repay that debt. Now, facing such a terrifying Wang Yunfei, he showed no retreat. A sword cultivator's edge, unbending even unto death. Wang Yunfei glanced once toward the Wang clan's direction before speaking. Finally, someone interesting has arrived. But this debt, you will not be able to collect. The sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land drew his sword without another word. I won't know unless I try. A heavenly sword fused perfectly with the sacred sun. Every sword cultivator present felt their hearts stir. This was none other than the legendary heavenly sword intent of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. The sacred sun had merged himself completely with the heavenly sword. I am the sword. The sword is me. The heavenly sword was the supreme realm of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land. In just 100 years, the sacred sun had comprehended the sword Tao to such an extent that it left every sword cultivator present feeling ashamed. Using the body as the sword, the heart as the sword, the sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land has completely forged himself into a blade. It seems the Sacred Land has spent these years tirelessly researching soul weapon methods. Chen narrowed his eyes. In the past, the Imperial sword manner's soul weapon technique required a willing sword Tao powerhouse to sacrifice their divine soul and willingly become the blade. Now, under the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land's improvements, the method had evolved to this terrifying degree, elevating the sword Tao to an entirely new height. Yet, this path was extreme. A single failure meant eternal damnation. The sacred son of the Heavenly Sword Sacred Land was strong, worthy of being a prodigy of this grand era. His strength was no less than monsters like Ling Wuya. No wonder he had the confidence to be the first to challenge Wang Yunfei. 2 terrifying auras clashed, causing wind and clouds to surge violently. The sacred sun swung his sword. Time and space seemed to freeze. In the next instant, the blade appeared directly above Wang Yunfei's head. Fast, impossibly fast. Chen sensed that this sword carried far more than he had initially imagined. Facing the strike, the golden divine mark between Wang Yunfei's brows flared to life. In the next moment, Wang Yunfei moved. No one saw how he did it. One hand simply closed around the blade's edge. Golden Qi collided with the sword light. The indestructible divine sword, forged from ancient heavenly gold, groaned under the pressure of his 5 fingers. Cracks spread across its surface. The sight made every scalp in the audience tingle. They felt the true weight of the title, Young Emperor. Monster. Even Su Chen could not help but curse inwardly. Born with a taboo divine physique. Possessing ancient pupil techniques. Mastering an unparalleled body-refining method. Faintly touching upon laws, this person seemed created solely to suppress everything. No weaknesses whatsoever. How could anyone defeat such a being? The sacred son of the heavenly sword sacred land had struck with his full power, yet he could not even break the defense. How were they supposed to fight? How were they supposed to contend? The once confident sacred son saw this scene and felt despair rise in his heart. This was a monster. No. I refuse to believe that in this era, you are unbeatable. The sacred son roared. Radiant light exploded from his body. His unyielding sword conviction soared to its limit, transforming into an edge sharp enough to sever anything. The divine sword, already on the verge of breaking, finally shattered completely. The sacred son's youthful appearance rapidly aged. His hair turned snow-white. He struggled to lift his head. A few strands of broken hair drifted down. A single drop of golden blood fell from the side of Wang Yunfei's face. This book is hosted on another platform. Read the official version and support the author's work. You are the first to wound me. Situ Jian, I will remember your name. Facing Wang Yunfei's words, Situ Jian smiled. His body slowly disintegrated into wind and sand. A generation's genius died. He had poured his entire life's sword Dao into one final strike. All to prove that Wang Yunfei was not invincible. Wang Yunfei's face showed neither joy nor sorrow. The wound on his cheek healed in an instant. His brilliant golden eyes swept across the crowd below. All of you who wish to challenge me, come at once. Situ Jian's all-out strike had finally ignited a trace of battle intent in Wang Yunfei's heart. He decided to grant them the chance for a truly exhilarating fight. If anyone else had spoken such words, it would have been pure arrogance. Those who dared challenge Wang Yunfei all possessed invincible convictions of their own. But after witnessing those two previous battles, they understood one thing: Wang Yunfei's strength was simply too overwhelming. Fighting him alone gave no chance of victory, perhaps not even the chance to force out his true power. Only by joining forces could they leave no regrets. Fight! As though by prior agreement, the crowd surged forward together toward Wang Yunfei. Among them were no fewer than 10 monsters who had stepped into the realm of true Dao. Each one, in any other era, would have been an invincible figure capable of suppressing 3,000 enemies. Yet this was a grand era. Above monsters stood even greater monsters. And Wang Yunfei was precisely that kind of monster. Chener, what are you planning to do? Wang Yaochen watched as Su Chen gently set Hu Miao Miao down and strode alone toward Wang Yunfei. He moved to intercept him. Father. I want to see exactly how wide the gap between Big Brother and me truly is. Su Chen's tone was resolute. Against a monster of this caliber, if he did not fight even once, he would carry endless regrets for the rest of his life. After this grand era passed, who knew if he would ever encounter another existence like Wang Yunfei again? Even if it cost him his life, Su Chen wanted to measure the distance between them. Wang Yaochen fell silent. After a long moment, he spoke only these words: remember, your own safety comes first. Su Chen nodded. Then, like the others, he unleashed every ounce of his martial Dao and charged toward Wang Yunfei alongside the rest. Wang Yunfei noticed his younger brother's figure. A trace of appreciation flickered in his usually calm eyes. He extended a single finger. A vast shower of golden meteors rained down, domineering, unyielding, eternal. That one finger carried divine might, a gesture of respect toward his brother. Su Chen went all out. His hair whipped wildly. He drew his sword in a single motion. White light bloomed in his pupils. The blade cleaved through the heavens. Countless meteors were extinguished in its path. Until finally, he faced an incomparably towering divine form. One finger descended, enough to suppress any monster. Overbearing power that brooked no refusal. It embodied what it meant to be the supreme prodigy of the era, the ruler of this age. Blood sprayed from Su Chen's mouth. His bones shattered. One prodigy after another was effortlessly defeated. A few burned everything they had to clash with Wang Yunfei in desperate final battles, only to fall silent soon after. In the end, only Wang Yunfei remained standing. Behind him swirled endless divine radiance. The treasure wheel representing his own path rotated slowly. The number 1 of heavenly profound, his name resounded across the starry void. 9 Suns Emperor Palace's successor, Wang Yunfei. Under the gazes of countless onlookers, Wang Yunfei led Central Continent's foremost beauty into the depths of the Emperor Palace. Su Chen slowly rose to his feet. A bitter smile curved his blood-stained lips. He still had a very long road ahead before he could reach that level. Months later, word spread across the heavenly profound domain, and even reached the extraterritorial void. Wang Yunfei had fought the prodigies of all 5 domains alone, and emerged with only slightly rumpled robes. In the courtyard of the Wang clan, Su Chen and Wang Yunfei sat facing one another. Today, Wang Yunfei had specially returned to the clan to seek out his younger brother. Wang Yunfei spoke first. His opening words sent a tremor through Su Chen's entire body. I am leaving the heavenly profound domain, to walk the path of becoming an emperor. The great emperor's twilight years have arrived. Destiny will soon reopen. The path to becoming an emperor, the lifelong dream of countless martial prodigies. And the graveyard of countless more. In Su Chen's memory, those who had walked this road included Fong Bubi, his old enemy Lin Zhan, and perhaps even the legendary ancestor of the Li clan, Li Shenhua. They journeyed across the starry void all the way to the edge of the cosmos. Time itself became a blade that severed prodigies. On the road to immortality, one could only sigh at the fleeting beauty of genius. But what truly caught Su Chen's attention was something else. Big brother, you've become a saint. Wang Yunfei nodded. A few days ago, during that battle, I gained some insight. My invincible Tao heart solidified, and beneath the Bodhi divine tree in the Emperor Palace, I comprehended the Tao and became a saint. He spoke lightly, as if it were nothing. Su Chen knew better. Even in this golden great era, becoming a saint was rarer than one in trillions, let alone achieving it after only a century of cultivation. Brother, I'm entrusting the Wang family to you. With you here, even if I die, the Wang family will still flourish. Wang Yunfei suddenly burst into hearty laughter. Of course, I won't die. In this great era, I will surely ascend to the absolute peak, and our Wang family will become an emperor clan. Su Chen froze. This was the first time he had seen this side of Wang Yunfei, tinged with melancholy and reluctance, no longer the utterly domineering figure of before. Oh, one more thing you should watch out for. Wang Yunfei seemed to remember something and gave a solemn reminder. Lately, the heavenly profound domain has been restless. Many prodigies have died without cause. The great powers in the Emperor Palace tried to divine the truth, but found nothing. I'm afraid someone is plotting in secret. Su Chen nodded, his mind turning. Could it be Zhou Hanchan, or that old monster from the western regions? The method felt all too familiar. After giving his final instructions, Wang Yunfei's expression returned to its former supreme dominance. Accompanied by the followers of the Emperor Palace, he set foot on the path of ascension that had stretched across all ages and vanished from the heavenly profound domain into the depths of the starry sky. That path now gathered the pinnacle prodigies of myriad races from this golden great era. After Wang Yunfei left, Su Chen met Ling Wuya once more. Ling Wuya had survived his battle with Wang Yunfei, but his complexion was poor, clearly shaken by the defeat. How could your Wang family produce such a monster? Ling Wuya stared at Su Chen, his face full of bewilderment. He had used every technique at his disposal and still failed to seriously injure Wang Yunfei. Instead, he had been defeated in 3 moves. Most people couldn't even last one move, those who endured 2 could be counted on one hand, and 3 on the fingers of one. Such an opponent had nearly shattered his confidence. Brother Wuya, aren't you going to take the path of ascension? Su Chen was curious. Wang Yunfei had departed, yet Ling Wuya showed no sign of following. Ling Wuya shook his head. With that monster on the path of ascension, there will only be more monsters, not fewer. If I could defeat Wang Yunfei, perhaps I would still try my luck and set foot on that road, but now I know I have no chance. He gave a bitter smile. If I die, I'm afraid the heavenly ruined sacred land will be finished in this great era. Su Chen felt helpless. For a seed like Ling Wuya, a future great saint, to perish so easily would be far too great a pity. His decision made perfect sense. Prodigies competed fiercely, but life held more than just competition. How many people in this world could truly walk without attachments? If you encounter this tale on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. Even someone as mighty as Wang Yunfei carried a single tether in his heart. Born invincible and burdened with the Emperor Palace's mission, he had no choice but to press forward. That attachment could only be buried beneath his overwhelming dominance. Ling Wuya returned to the eastern wasteland. Su Chen remained in central continent, quietly perfecting his own path. His road was still far from its end. The Wang family recognized Su Chen's potential. On Wang Yaochen's recommendation, he was named the family seed, the heir to the next patriarch, and granted access to the clan's full resources. 100 years passed in a flash, and many new geniuses emerged. Countless events, large and small, unfolded during that century. Yet Su Chen clearly felt that the suppression of realms between heaven and earth had loosened further. Cultivation progressed twice as fast as before, and breaking through to higher realms became noticeably easier. In those 100 years, his cultivation advanced to the 4th layer of nirvana, making him one of the great powers of his generation. When Su Chen emerged from seclusion, he was stirred by momentous news. Our Wang family's geniuses, wiped out to the last one. Su Chen furrowed his brow. Over the past century, the Wang family had produced quite a few talents. Though none reached the level of divine or sacred physiques, several nirvana seeds had emerged. Now they were all gone. These were his foundation. How could he not be furious? Several months later, Su Chen set out beyond the stars. He had received word, an ancient genius of the Night Owl clan, ignorant of his own limits, had ambushed the Wang family members while they explored a starry secret realm, slaughtering them and plundering their cultivation resources. The Night Owl clan once had a saint overseeing them. After that saint fell, they declined from a mighty starry race into little more than roadside vermin. Half a year later, Su Chen arrived in the Night Owl clan's territory, a primitive civilization. He showed no mercy. With a sweep of the dust-returned sword in his hand, one strike split into 10,000, razing one stronghold after another to ash. Finally, a pitch-black humanoid figure appeared, its head resembling an owl's. It wielded an ebony spear and soared into the sky, communicating through divine sense. Who are you? Why do you massacre my Night Owl clan? Su Chen answered with a single sword. He intended to make these extraterrestrial races understand that even without news of Wang Yunfei, the Wang family's new era still had someone in command. The two clashed across the starry void. 3 days later, Su Chen severed the Night Owl prodigy's head. In his final moments, the genius revealed why he had targeted the Wang family. Sealed away for far too long, the Night Owl clan had lost its saintly heritage and resources. Desperate to advance further in this great era, he had taken the risk to hunt for treasures, never expecting the Wang family still sheltered a figure like Su Chen. Su Chen felt a trace of sympathy for the Night Owl genius's plight, but no pity. After eradicating the clan's prodigies, Su Chen turned back toward the heavenly profound domain. Before he could enter, his sharp senses detected something wrong with the surrounding space. He halted and spoke calmly, "You followed me this long. It's time to show yourselves." In the void, killing intent erupted at once. Multiple auras locked onto him from the darkness. Another battle broke out, this one even more brutal. To Su Chen's surprise, the attackers came from different races, yet every single one possessed strength on par with the Night Owl prodigy he had just slain. Who exactly gathered so many geniuses like this? They were powerful, but Su Chen's strength had grown far beyond them over the years. Unleashing his full power, he cut down 3 in mere moments. Panic spread among the rest. As they tried to flee, Su Chen gave chase across the stars, refusing to let any escape. Only when the last one remained did he learn their origin. They hailed from deep in the starry expanse, from a formidable power on the path of ascension called the God-slaying Hall. One of its Hall masters had been killed by Wang Yunfei. After Wang Yunfei vanished into the depths of the stars, the Hall flew into rage. They sought to draw out Su Chen, Wang Yunfei's blood brother, kill him, and force Wang Yunfei to reappear. Su Chen's expression remained impassive. Without a flicker of emotion, he crushed the final one in his grip. Su Chen returned to the Wang family and informed them of everything concerning Wang Yunfei and the God-slaying Hall. With the Wang family's influence, it did not take long to gather intelligence from across the stars. The God-slaying Hall was a supreme power that had long since set foot on the path of ascension. It had been founded by a group of prodigies with grand ambitions, and in its history, 2 emperors who once reigned over the cosmos had emerged from its ranks. The Hall had 5 Hall masters in total, each a renowned top-tier prodigy on the path of ascension. Some were invincible figures of the current era, others were ancient existences who had once contended with great emperors of old, only to be defeated and seal themselves away for generation after generation. These were no mere regional hegemons like those who claimed invincibility within the heavenly profound domain. The monsters of the God-slaying Hall had truly clashed with great emperors on the Tao. Su Chen narrowed his eyes. According to the intelligence, one of the Hall's Hall masters bore the name Lin Zhan. Although Wang Yunfei had not killed Lin Zhan, he had slain another ancient monster who had revived in this great era, one who, with a sacred body, had defied a saint king. Amid the Hall's encirclement and pursuit, Wang Yunfei had escaped unscathed. Still, the Wang family felt no real concern. The Emperor Palace had already begun to move against the God-slaying Hall. Prodigies who had once walked the path of ascension were taking action. A power that had given birth to emperors possessed depths far beyond ordinary understanding, and that road held its own share of monsters who had contended with great emperors. So they want to use my life to force Wang Yunfei out. Lin Zhan's doing. Su Chen had never imagined that the once open-hearted, fortune-favored Lin Zhan, unable to hide even the smallest thought, would one day grow so ruthless. Yet he felt no regret. Facing this cold, merciless, anything-goes version of Lin Zhan, Su Chen felt like he was regarding a piece of artwork he had meticulously carved himself. He had utterly destroyed everything Lin Zhan once possessed. In this contest against a child of destiny that had stretched across millennia, neither had truly lost, and neither had truly won. Su Chen returned to seclusion. In other eras, the Nirvana realm would mark one as a true powerhouse, but in this golden great era, anyone short of a saint was nothing more than an ant. 50 years later, seismic news arrived from deep in the starry expanse. Wang Yunfei had broken through to Saint King and slain yet another Hall Master of the God-slaying Hall. With 2 of the 5 Hall Masters dead, the Hall flew into a fury and vowed to eliminate Wang Yunfei at any cost. Even the Hall's second Hall Master, Lin Zhan himself, personally took action, only to be blocked by a formidable enemy. 300 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Chen's cultivation reached its absolute peak. Both his vital blood and true essence had been tempered to perfection. Seated in meditation, his body resembled an unshakable Mount Tai. It's time to become a saint. Sensing that the moment had arrived, Su Chen no longer restrained his aura. The clear sky for thousands of miles around darkened instantly. Thunder roared as saintly tribulations descended from above, as though intent on cleaving the world apart and returning it to primal chaos. The entire region spanning over 1,000 miles turned into a sea of lightning. Enjoying this book? Seek out the original to ensure the author gets credit. High above, 2 figures appeared, their auras profound and unfathomable, the hidden foundations of the Wang family, 2 Saint Kings. Only after the 2 ancestors revealed themselves did the covetous presences lurking in every direction finally vanish completely. Our Wang family will soon gain another saint. Indeed. Though Wang Chen lacks the dazzling brilliance of his brother Wang Yunfei, he possesses the qualifications of a Saint King. Once he matures, even after we old fellows pass on, he will be able to ensure the Wang family prospers for thousands of years. A pair of brothers, truly the greatest gift bestowed upon our Wang family for rising in this great era. Su Chen bathed in the thunder tribulation. Bolt after bolt hammered his body until his flesh turned to charred black coal. As the heavenly tribulation gradually faded, that blackened form began its transformation. 1 year later, Su Chen emerged from seclusion. Tao rhythms swirled around him, with every gesture, heaven and earth rose and fell in response. In this life, his breakthrough to saint came without fanfare or storm, everything flowed naturally. 500 years, and he had become a saint. A saint enjoyed 5,000 years of lifespan. Su Chen had used less than a tenth of that span to reach the saint realm, establishing himself as one of the foremost figures across the 5 domains of the heavenly profound. He assumed the position of the current patriarch of the Wang family. In this great era, who would rise to command the tides? Su Chen gazed toward the distant heavens beyond. He could feel it, that terrifying suppression growing looser by the day. When it finally vanished entirely, the most dreadful event would descend. An event recorded in history with only the briefest stroke, yet soaked in the blood of countless beings, forged from the tears and agony of innumerable lives. Dark turmoil. Only after assuming the role of Wang family patriarch did Su Chen learn of such a horrifying truth. Some of the ancient emperors had never truly died. They severed their own Tao paths, erased every trace of themselves from the imprint of heaven and earth, and willingly fell from that supreme realm, all for the faint hope of continued existence. While a reigning great emperor lived, they remained hidden from the world. But once that emperor aged or perished, those once revered figures, former objects of universal law, would turn into executioners of all living things. Nor were these horrors limited to the legendary fallen emperors. There were also decayed saints who refused to accept death. Though they could no longer endure in the world for long, they would resort to any means necessary to cling to life. Confronted with this brutal reality, Su Chen felt both bewilderment and rage. If more and more emperors refused to die and kept prolonging their wretched existence, this heaven and earth would inevitably slide toward decline and eventual annihilation. Why would those once invincible emperors fail to see through even life and death? Or is there some temptation so great that it drives them to persist, age after age? Confusion settled in Su Chen's heart. Upon becoming a saint, he suddenly realized the world was far more complex and merciless than he had ever imagined. Another 300 years slipped by. Su Chen often turned his eyes to the starry sky. At times, he longed to set foot on that path himself. Yet in this great era, the Wang family's new generation of prodigies had fared poorly. The prodigies who once clashed with Wang Yunfei gradually stepped into the saint realm. Saints appeared one after another across the heavenly profound domain, carving up the era's fortune. But the chi of fortune gathered overwhelmingly in the central continent, the other 4 domains grew thin. For the next generation of prodigies outside the central continent, breaking through to saint became exceptionally difficult. The other 4 domains soon noticed the imbalance. An ancient great saint from the northern domain joined forces with powerhouses from the 4 domains to pressure the central continent, demanding that the Emperor Palace and its many forces redistribute the chi of fortune. All the major powers of the central continent attended the gathering. As the Wang family patriarch, Su Chen was naturally present. Today, the pattern of the 5 domains must be leveled. You in central continent monopolize 90% of the world's Tao opportunities. Where does that leave the cultivators of the other 4 domains? The northern domain's ancient great saint spoke with iron force, his face twisted in murderous intent. If not, then even if it means igniting an emperor war and shattering the central continent, we will pay the price without hesitation. Su Chen's heart sank. That day had finally arrived. No one was willing to sit and wait for death. The top powers of the central continent naturally refused to surrender any portion of their interests. Equal division of the 5 domains sounded simple enough, the other 4 would gain enormous benefits, but what about central continent? It was precisely because of its position at the heart of heaven and earth, drawing in the chi of fortune from all 5 domains, that so many powerhouses had emerged and allowed it to stand unshakable through the great era. Every major force in the central continent rejected the demand outright. Though Su Chen had once reincarnated across the other 4 domains in past lives, in this one he stood as the Wang family patriarch and could never agree to such a proposal. The meeting ended in acrimony. Storm clouds now gathered over the entire heavenly profound domain. Hold the 4 domains' powerhouses back. At the command of a supreme being from the central continent Emperor Palace, the experts of various forces struck as the 4 domains' representatives attempted to withdraw. Since the facade had been torn away, the Emperor Palace acted without hesitation. Deeper within central continent, an ultimate powerhouse personally intervened, intent on slaying the northern domain's ancient great saint and cowing the entire heavenly profound. Just as the old great saint teetered on the edge of death, golden outlines suddenly flared across the sky, like an ancient scroll unfurling across time and space. Then, in the void, a black gold seam materialized, a tall, long-haired man stood proudly atop the firmament. Behind him rose countless divine kingdoms, ancient gods emerging one after another, wreathed in sacred patterns and radiant light, as though an unparalleled divine sovereign had stepped forth from legend. That terrifying aura seemed capable of crushing the central continent itself. At that moment, a figure emerged from the depths of the Emperor Palace, immensely tall, encircled by endless rivers of stars. The ancient face gazed at the newcomer and spoke calmly, "You finally returned." Su Chen stared at the 2 figures. 2 words surfaced in his mind. Quasi-Emperor. These 2 terrifying existences were both legendary quasi-emperors. No wonder the 4 domains had the courage to challenge central continent. In this era, a quasi-emperor had actually appeared. As he sensed the familiar presence radiating from the newly arrived man, a name rose in Su Chen's thoughts. Li Shenhua. The ancient ancestor of the Li family. So much time had passed that Su Chen retained only the faintest impression of him. Once hailing from a remote corner of the world, Li Shenhua had created the terrifying scripture known as the Imperial Apex Shock the World technique. Across several lifetimes, Su Chen had heard no news of him, whether he lived or died remained unknown. After all, the world had never lacked dazzling geniuses. Yet now it seemed Li Shenhua had not only survived but ventured deep into the starry expanse to become one of the absolute pinnacle prodigies. Li Shenhua spoke indifferently, the era of Central Continent is coming to an end. This is an irreversible tide. The old quasi-emperor of the Emperor Palace laughed heartily. Wrong. The era of Central Continent is only just beginning. The two quasi-emperor powerhouses faced off. The trajectories of sun and moon in the heavens were forcibly shifted by their terrifying power, giving rise to the anomalous sight of sun and moon rising together. If you encounter this story on Amazon, note that it's taken without permission from the author. Report it. Su Chen watched the departing group from the eastern wasteland. He understood clearly, the next time they met, they would already be mortal enemies. Li Shenhua clashed with the old quasi-emperor of the Emperor Palace, then withdrew unscathed. But this great war had only just begun. Central Continent knew the other four domains also had quasi-emperors guarding them. They would never accept defeat quietly. Central Continent formed the Central Continent Alliance with the Emperor Palace at its head. The four outer domains formed the Four Domains Alliance. An unprecedented war erupted and lasted for a full century. Even from the depths of the starry void, powerhouses continuously returned to the heavenly profound domain to join the conflict. Mountain ranges shattered. Vast seas overturned. More and more powerhouses perished in battle. Su Chen led the Wang clan to defend a place known as Divine Nether Ancient City. He gave a wry smile in his heart. Though the four outer domains were far inferior to the Central Continent, their foundations were still deep. Ancient existences sealed away for ages now emerged one after another. They must have learned that the life of that emperor was nearing its end. A dark turmoil was approaching. They had no choice but to seize Central Continent's fortune at any cost, so they could establish a firm footing in the coming great era. Otherwise, when the scattered forbidden zones erupted, without sufficient strength, countless orthodoxies would face total annihilation. The four domains marched on the Central Continent. Yet the war lasted a full century, until one person's arrival finally brought it to an end. A decree from the great emperor, the Central Continent of the heavenly profound domain shall have half its fortune and be divided among the four outer domains. The struggle among the five domains of heavenly profound ends here. Cease all hostilities. A familiar figure appeared above the heavenly profound domain. His overwhelming aura pressed down so heavily that every living being in the domain could not lift their heads. Even the old ancestor of the Emperor Palace and the former Li Shenhua had no choice but to bow in reverence. We obey the emperor's command. Fong Bubi held the imperial decree. Even a great emperor on the verge of sitting down and passing away could not be defied by anyone present. Know the will of the emperor. Fong Bubi coldly swept his gaze across the assembled crowd. This war had even drawn in beings from deep within the ancient paths. The number of prodigies who died in the conflict was beyond counting. Fong Bubi had never expected these people to be so audacious. If he had not entered the service of the emperor and still belonged to the heavenly profound domain, what arrived might not have been merely an imperial decree. All living beings in the heavenly profound domain faced the great emperor's decree. No matter their past grievances, they could only bow in submission. No matter how unwilling the Central Continent forces were, they had no choice but to obediently shatter their spirit veins, divide their fortune, and cede half to the four outer domains. Such was the deterrent power of a contemporary great emperor. A single decree suppressed the entire cosmos. The myriad races dared not disobey. The war among the five domains ended. Su Chen clearly sensed that the Central Continent's vital chi had declined sharply. Even breaking through realms had become noticeably more difficult. Many forces were bound to decline in the aftermath. Time passed in a flash. 500 years went by. Su Chen continued to serve as the head of the Wang clan. Then, one day, a sudden, piercing grief tore through his heart, as though the entire universe were weeping blood. The great emperor's life has reached its end. Su Chen's body soared out of the heavenly profound domain. In that moment, he saw countless figures just like himself flying out from their respective domains and heavens, gathering in the starry void. There were innumerable points of light, each at least a saint, crossing countless star systems. At the distant end sat a withered figure upon an boundless Tao precipice. His chi and blood were feeble, his hair was white as snow. That invincible emperor was no longer invincible. The Tao that once suppressed all living beings had finally reached its conclusion. Divine Evolution Great Emperor. Su Chen knew this emperor's title. From the end of the ancient era until now, 33 emperors had appeared. Divine Evolution Great Emperor was the contemporary one, yet among the 33, he could only be considered average. After achieving the Tao, he had not, like those peerless emperors who covered the ages, devoted himself to pacifying the forbidden zones. Nor had he, like those fallen emperors, degenerated and treated the living beings of the world as livestock. Su Chen vaguely sensed that one terrifying figure after another lurked in the darkness, eyeing this aged great emperor, waiting for the moment of his death. Boom. It was as though something in the entire cosmos had shattered. Countless saints turned toward that distant figure and bowed deeply from afar. We respectfully send off the great emperor. As the myriad respectful farewells echoed across countless star domains, it was as though a Pandora's box had been flung open. The great emperor's power dissolved into countless points of light, scattering to every corner of the cosmos. In those distant domains, the laws of heaven and earth grew more perfect, and vital chi grew denser and richer. Ha 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 ha. That old bastard divine evolution has finally died. An ancient world manifested. Above an ocean formed from rivers of stars rose an impossibly towering mountain that overshadowed entire domains. From within it stepped a figure. With a casual squeeze of one hand, an entire star domain shattered. Countless living beings perished without even a chance to scream, billions upon trillions swallowed whole in a single gulp. The myriad stars see, the primordial ancient mountain. A former supreme powerhouse had emerged the instant the divine evolution great emperor perished. That godlike yet demonic figure arrived at the site of divine evolution's nirvana. Facing the many powerful enemies blocking his path, he sneered with contempt. That old fool divine evolution never dared storm my primordial ancient mountain, yet he thought he could simply outlast me. What a foolish, naive delusion. 5 quasi-emperors flew out from divine evolution's Tao field and roared in fury, though the great emperor has passed, that does not give the likes of you the right to profane his name. The starry void trembled. Terrifying fluctuations rippled across light years. Quasi-emperors bled. Emperor scriptures awakened. The scene ignited unrest in forbidden zones across the cosmos. Within the heavenly profound domain, dreadful forbidden zones revived as well. Powerful beings stepped forth one after another. In that moment, the Emperor Palace's old quasi-emperor and Li Shenhua set aside their grievances and joined forces against the terrifying revived entities flooding the heavenly profound domain. Su Chen returned to the Wang family. With the domain in upheaval, as patriarch, he had to oversee the clan's affairs. The beings emerging from the forbidden zones possessed horrifying abilities. They could erode the minds of outside cultivators, slowly twisting them into the same kind of madmen. This war was fought not only against ancient existences of old, but against unknown forces, and even against former comrades and kin. 1 year later, the divine evolution great emperor's former Tao field could no longer hold. His disciples had nearly all perished. The once glorious emperor Tao field lay in ruins. More and more ancient powerhouses emerged from their respective forbidden zones. Having confirmed the great emperor's death, they would not pass up the chance to feast on his remains, or seize the emperor scripture he had left behind. Those were supreme treasures. Finally, under the assault of 3 overwhelmingly powerful existences, the emperor scripture was shattered. Only one person remained in the entire Tao field. Fong Bubi had broken through to quasi-emperor, yet before 3 former supreme emperors, he appeared utterly powerless. Give me another 1,000 years, just 1 more 1,000 years, and the outcome would not be like this. Fong Bubi's body was blasted apart again and again. Blood stained the stars. Yet he remained deeply helpless. Unauthorized duplication, this narrative has been taken without consent. Report sightings. Stop this. You were once emperors revered by all living beings. How have you fallen so low? A furious shout erupted from one of the great domains. An ancient figure appeared, an aged quasi-emperor whose vital blood had long since declined. He wielded a fully awakened extreme Tao emperor scripture and had come to reinforce divine evolution's Tao field, hoping to preserve at least a shred of dignity for this great emperor. From the direction of the heavenly profound domain, Li Shenhua and the old quasi-emperor of the 9 Suns Emperor Palace had joined forces to suppress one of the revived forbidden zones. An ancient quasi-emperor creature had been slain. Old man, lend me the emperor scripture. Li Shenhua turned to the old quasi-emperor, his tone calm. The old quasi-emperor of the 9 Suns Emperor Palace paused. He stared deeply at Li Shenhua. That place is not for you. You are still young. My old bones have little time left, let me go instead. Li Shenhua's face remained expressionless, his voice leaving no room for argument. You are too weak. That emperor scripture would be wasted in your hands. Let me go. At the very least, I can hold one of them back, or even slay a supreme. The old quasi-emperor let out a long sigh. He retrieved the emperor scripture of the 9 Suns Emperor Palace and handed it over without hesitation, even though the two had been enemies not long before. Let this emperor scripture shine with its final brilliance in this era. Let it live up to the prestige of its former emperor lord. The old quasi-emperor offered no rebuttal. Li Shenhua was far stronger than he was. Wielding the emperor scripture, he might very well fight a supreme to the death. Such an act would be an immense merit for heaven, earth, and all living beings. Li Shenhua departed the heavenly profound domain, carrying the emperor scripture of the 9 Suns Emperor Palace as he ventured deep into the cosmos. If those supremes succeeded in devouring even a portion of a great emperor's corpse and regained part of their former might, the consequences would be unthinkable. At that moment, in the western regions, a pale figure, radiant as a divinity, opened its eyes and gazed joyfully toward the depths of the stars. The emperor scripture has vanished. Without the damned interference of the 9 Suns Emperor Palace, who in this era can stop me from ascending to emperor? With each breath, heaven and earth rose and fell, dissolving into primal chaos. An ancient existence lurked in the shadows, biding its time until the moment it could reign supreme. It did not take long for the universe to tremble once more. 3 additional Forbidden Zone Supremes emerged. 6 Supremes in a single era. All living beings fell into despair. Divine Evolution Great Emperor's Tao field had been shattered. Even though quasi-emperors wielded emperor scriptures, under the oppressive might of 6 supremes, every effort seemed futile. The 6 supremes stared greedily at the corpse. They calmly discussed how to divide it, the head, the arms, the legs, the torso. Just as one supreme raised a hand to strike, the supposedly dead Divine Evolution Great Emperor abruptly opened his eyes. Before the supreme could react, a single blow exploded its body. As the supreme attempted to reform, Divine Evolution reached out with one hand, seizing an ancient imprint. Without giving the slightest chance for resistance, he erased every trace of its existence from heaven and earth. You're not dead. The remaining 5 supremes stared in utter horror. Deep in the cosmos, that supreme great path blazed once again. An unrivaled aura pierced through the universe, forcing billions upon trillions of living beings to kneel in submission. Divine Evolution Great Emperor had returned to life. Divine Evolution, what a ruthless heart. You feigned death. You watched with your own eyes as we slaughtered your disciples and grand-disciples to the last, all to lull us into lowering our guard. One of the former supremes cried out, terror gripping both body and soul. Dense scriptures appeared all around them, each character the size of a star, falling like raindrops into the depths of the cosmos, weaving together into an inescapable prison. Divine Evolution Great Emperor spoke. His aged voice resounded throughout the universe, for the sake of killing you all, their deaths were deaths well spent. Seeing their escape route sealed, the 5 supremes felt a wave of bleak despair. Divine Evolution, what a divine evolution. A lifetime without campaigning against any forbidden zone, so it was all in preparation for this moment. We underestimated you. But if you think you can kill us all alone, you are far too naive. Kill him. Devouring a living great emperor would more than make up for the vital blood we lost in this battle. The 5 supremes unleashed their most terrifying power. The great Tao of old reappeared in this corner of heaven and earth. Chen stared into the depths of the cosmos, where an earth-shattering aura erupted in a battle unprecedented in history. So this is the power of a great emperor. His scalp tingled. Even though he had become a saint and witnessed quasi-emperors clash, in the face of this terrifying force, saints and quasi-emperors seemed no different at all. A casual wave of a great emperor's hand could probably erase the entire heavenly profound domain from existence. What stunned him even more was that the Divine Evolution Great Emperor had faked his death. This 33rd Great Emperor to prove the Tao since the end of the primordial era, the one the world had always regarded as the most mediocre, possessed such deep schemes. To draw out the hidden supremes, he had turned a blind eye even to the deaths of his closest friends, disciples, and grand-disciples. All of it, just to seize a single opportunity. Everyone had underestimated this great emperor. In the western regions, Yi Shuquang felt that hair-raising aura and felt nothing but relief in his heart. Fortunately, he had been patient enough, cautious enough. Otherwise, his fate would likely have been no better than those supremes. He would have been swarmed and struck down without mercy. Deep in the cosmos, Divine Evolution Great Emperor faced 5 former emperors, now supremes. Blood stained the stars. With his dying body, he fought relentlessly, slaying 2 in succession. The remaining 3 exhausted every method to break the Imperial formation and fled back to their respective forbidden zones. Yet Divine Evolution refused to let them go. Dragging his broken Imperial body, he pursued with the intent to claim at least one more supreme. To buy time for their escape, the other 2 supremes turned without hesitation on the one cloaked in silver radiance. Across the cosmos rang that supreme's furious roar, "You 2 bastards." In the next instant, Divine Evolution arrived. Facing the blood-mad, life-risking great emperor, the lone supreme left behind cursed in rage. Why would an era produce a great emperor like you? Among the 33 emperors, your strength ranks in the top 10. Why pretend to be so mediocre? The supreme could not understand. With such overwhelming power, Divine Evolution could have stormed the forbidden zones from the beginning. Why hold back until the brink of death? Divine Evolution severed that supreme's head. The undying body was erased from existence. Carrying the severed head, he dragged his ruined form back to the Tao cliff. The place lay in ruins all around him. He gazed at the devastation, his eyes dim with sorrow. A few drops of essence blood fell from his fingertip, flying toward distant places. Alone, he sat upon the Tao cliff, the entire universe revolving around him. 4 supremes dead. Across all ancient history, how many have achieved such a feat? Supremes were hard to kill, not because they were overwhelmingly strong, but because they were cunning enough. Even those great emperors who had pacified forbidden zones might never kill 4 supremes in a lifetime. The cosmic emperor Tao fell silent once more. Divine Evolution Great Emperor sat alone on the Tao cliff. His broken, damaged body remained upright, unyielding. Yet there were still unconvinced supremes lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting to confirm whether this great emperor had truly died. If you stumble upon this narrative on Amazon, it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. Another century passed. The great emperor battle seemed to have subsided. More and more prodigies of this era set foot on the path of ascension. Having witnessed the might of a great emperor, who among them did not dream of becoming such an existence themselves. Chen received fresh news from deep in the stars. Wang Yunfei had broken through to the great saint realm. He challenged several hall masters of the god-slaying hall and directly slew 2 of them. Only Lin Zhan remained. The 2 finally clashed, then, by mutual agreement, both withdrew. Lin Zhan had broken through to Great Saint centuries earlier, his foundation ran deeper than Wang Yunfei's. After that heaven-shaking battle, the name of the young Emperor Wang Yunfei resounded throughout the cosmos. In the eyes of far too many people, this era belonged to Wang Yunfei alone. His brilliance was simply unmatched. Even Fang Bubi, once personally chosen and taken as a disciple by Divine Evolution Great Emperor, had suffered defeats. Even Lin Zhan, who dominated the god-slaying hall and struck terror into countless prodigies, had never reached such heights. Even those ancient monsters who had once contended with great emperors treated Wang Yunfei as a grave threat. Yet over the next century, the Supremes could no longer sit still. Although the Divine Evolution Great Emperor had never campaigned against the Forbidden Zones, none of those Supreme Zones had dared extend their claws toward the myriad races of the stars during his reign. He had fixed his gaze solely on the ultimate Forbidden Zones guarded by Supremes, leaving those beings grinding their teeth in hatred, especially the primordial ancient mountain. The previous Great Emperor had stared it down, Divine Evolution had stared even harder. If they could not harvest vitality soon, and a new Great Emperor emerged, one Supreme Forbidden Zone might truly be starved to death. The thought was laughable. From the primordial ancient mountain, one Supreme crossed countless seas of stars, intent on harvesting the life force of living beings to replenish his depleted vitality. But the moment he traversed into the open cosmos, the supposedly dead Divine Evolution Great Emperor abruptly opened his eyes once more. Terrified, the Supreme fled without looking back. Half his body was severed across the starry expanse by Divine Evolution strike, he abandoned it without hesitation and escaped straight back into his Forbidden Zone. That single scene caused every lurking covetous aura in the vicinity to vanish instantly. Damn it all, Divine Evolution still isn't dead. How long can that old bastard possibly live? The Supremes of the Forbidden Zones teetered on the edge of despair. They feared Divine Evolution would lock onto them, trace their aura, and find their lairs. Divine Evolution Great Emperor felt a trace of regret. This time, he had failed to kill even one Supreme. He returned to the Tao Cliff. Once again, a breath of final extinction spread through the cosmos. Myriad beings wailed in sorrow, though this time, many of those cries carried an undertone of absurdity. Chen looked up toward the depths of the starry sky, the corner of his mouth twitching. History would surely record Divine Evolution Great Emperor in bold strokes. He might not be the strongest Great Emperor, but he was unquestionably the most cautious. Which Great Emperor had ever feigned death 3 times? Who else used Nirvana as bait for entrapment? Even if the Divine Evolution Great Emperor truly perished now, the Supremes of those Forbidden Zones would likely not dare emerge for a very long time. 1,000 years passed. Legends of the stars continued to spread. For a full millennium, no Supreme emerged, and no further word came of the Divine Evolution Great Emperor. Chen's cultivation reached the 7th layer of the Saint realm. Given another 1,000 years, he might reach the peak of Saint and glimpse the threshold of Saint King. A Saint lived for 5,000 years. Chen had cultivated for only 2,000 so far. Perhaps. Divine Evolution Great Emperor really has died. 1,000 years had passed without the slightest ripple. Unless he lived out a second life, but with wounds so grievous, even an undying divine medicine might not have been enough to grant him another lifespan. The Forbidden Zones began to stir. They tested the waters, first the minor zones, then the major ones, and finally the Supreme Forbidden Zones emerged. Still, no sign of the Divine Evolution Great Emperor. Divine Evolution Great Emperor was dead. This time, he was truly gone. At the end of the ancient path, figures threw themselves forward desperately, braving the crushing pressure of the remnant Emperor Tao, and the struggle to become emperor began. Boom! The instant the Divine Evolution Great Emperor's death was confirmed, an incomparably terrifying aura poured down over the heavenly profound domain like a raging flood. A quasi-emperor had emerged. Deep in the cosmos, the countless powerhouses fighting and vying for the path to emperor on the path of ascension suddenly froze. Every one of them sensed that overwhelming, dreadful presence. Who is about to become an emperor? They stood stunned. The Tao Mark's Divine Evolution Great Emperor had left and heaven and earth had not yet dispersed. No one had even reached the peak of quasi-emperor, yet someone was already attempting to break through to the emperor realm. Those in seclusion who still held hope of ascending to emperor, Fang Bubi, Lin Zhan, Wang Yunfei, Li Shenhua, and others, were equally dumbfounded. To attempt emperor ascension under the lingering pressure of an undispersed Tao, who could it be? Even the beings emerging from the Forbidden Zones were struck speechless. Divine Evolution Great Emperor had only just died. Could this heaven and earth truly welcome a second great emperor so soon? No, absolutely not. We cannot allow a second great emperor to appear this quickly. Some of the decayed Supremes panicked. They had endured for 100,000 years without tasting a single bite. If another great emperor arose now, would they have to wait another 100,000 years? Within the Wang family, Chen lifted his head. A sudden palpitation gripped his heart. When a saint's bloodline stirred with premonition, something monumental was about to occur. Above the heavenly profound domain, the sky turned pitch black, covered in endless thunder. An ancient divine hall descended with a single figure at its center. It stood towering over the vast heavenly profound domain, rendering the entire realm insignificant in comparison. Through layers of space, Chen caught sight of a familiar face. Yushu Kuang, he truly had not died. No, it was no longer Jade unrestrained. He should now be called the Spirit Divine King. He had returned once more. The moment Su Chen recognized the Spirit-Divine King, the latter's gaze turned toward the central continent. In an instant, Su Chen felt as though he had been struck by a catastrophic blow, his body cracked and shattered. Countless living beings across the central continent were extinguished with that single glance. What terrifying power, the Spirit-Divine King! Su Chen's heart trembled in shock. He could sense that the Spirit-Divine King's strength surpassed even the old Quasi-Emperor of the Emperor Palace and Li Shenhua, perhaps even rivaling the Supremes of the Forbidden Zones. The Spirit-Divine King extended one hand over the western regions. Under the horrified gazes of billions upon billions of living beings, he seized the entire landmass of the western regions in his grasp. The tail has been illicitly lifted. Should you spot it on Amazon, report the violation. What are you doing? From the western regions, a figure clad in star-white robes materialized, his expression filled with terror. Spirit-Divine King, you promised me, you would help me become a Quasi-Emperor. The Spirit-Divine King threw back his head and laughed wildly. Quasi-Emperor? What is that worth? Let me help you become an emperor instead. If you merge with me, when I become emperor, won't that mean you have become emperor as well? Amid the western region's great saint's furious roar, the Spirit-Divine King crushed him without hesitation. Then the entire western region's heaven and earth transformed into a crystalline arm that fused directly into the Spirit-Divine King's body. His aura surged violently once more. The scene left countless beings frozen in dread. Trillions upon trillions of lives had simply vanished. Su Chen recognized the one the Spirit-Divine King had crushed. In his previous life, he had glimpsed that figure only once from afar. He had been the one secretly orchestrating everything in the western regions. Yet he had never imagined such a terrifying existence could be so easily pinched to death by the Spirit-Divine King. The Spirit-Divine King's aura grew even more horrifying, terrifying enough to drown out everything else, infinitely close to the great Emperor realm. The legends were true, the legends were truly true. Our heavenly profound domain was once formed from the body of a mighty existence from an ancient epoch long before. An ancestor of one of the central continent's ancient clans saw the crystalline arm fused into the Spirit-Divine King and suddenly recalled something. He cried out in shock. The old Quasi-Emperor of the central continent Emperor Palace sensed the disturbance. He left the palace and, upon seeing the Spirit-Divine King, his eyes widened in horror. It's you. You're actually still alive. The Spirit-Divine King threw back his head and laughed. Old thing, you cannot stop me. I will eventually reclaim everything that belongs to me. He stood with hands clasped behind his back. The supreme great path pressed down across the cosmos. The most terrifying power in the universe converged toward him. The Emperor Tribulation. Even with only a partial restoration of his body, the Spirit-Divine King had summoned the Tribulation of Ascension. He stood on the verge of crossing it and becoming an emperor. We absolutely cannot allow this person to become an emperor. At the end of the path of ascension, the powerhouses hailing from the heavenly profound domain witnessed the scene and made their resolve. The Spirit-Divine King intended to refine the entire heavenly profound domain. They would never permit it. The Supremes of the Forbidden Zones watched in utter terror. We cannot let him become an emperor, otherwise a peerless great emperor will be born, one who can live out a second life, a third. How could we possibly survive? The Spirit-Divine King sensed the killing intent surrounding him and laughed uproariously. A bunch of ants thinks they can stop me from becoming an emperor. Delusional. The living beings of the heavenly profound domain watched his actions with sinking hearts. If the Spirit-Divine King lived, they would not. More and more powerhouses joined the encirclement, determined to halt his ascension before the terrifying Emperor Tribulation could descend. Even the Supremes took action. Saints fell like ants. Quasi-emperors numbered in the double digits. In the clash, countless stars shattered. Just as the Emperor Tribulation was about to fall, a figure that pierced through time and space suddenly emerged from an ancient forbidden zone. While the Spirit-Divine King divided his attention, fending off the tribulation on one side and battling the many powerhouses on the other, this figure struck from behind. Half of the Spirit-Divine King's body exploded under the blow. The arm bone he had fused earlier was torn away by the attacker and swiftly carried into retreat. The Spirit-Divine King reacted at once. He roared toward the fleeing figure, Zhou Guang. You dare ambush me. The Supreme who had launched the sneak attack felt a jolt of alarm. He had not expected the Spirit-Divine King to recognize him. Countless ancient powerhouses stared in horror. Zhou Guang, that was the title of an incomparably mighty emperor from the primordial era. And he was still alive. As Supreme Zhou Guang vanished into the depths of the starry sky without a trace, the remaining Supremes surged forward in unison, intent on slaying the Spirit-Divine King. Yet in that instant, many of the quasi-emperors who had originally attacked the Spirit-Divine King, those wielding extreme doubt emperor scriptures, suddenly turned their blades toward the Supremes instead. Su Chen's face was pale. He stared at the Spirit-Divine King's downfall and murmured to himself, truly, one cannot afford to be too arrogant. The Spirit-Divine King's strength had been terrifying beyond measure. After fusing with that single arm bone, his power had rivaled an alternative path to the Tao, on par with a Supreme. But, he had been far too arrogant to challenge the entire cosmos's powerhouses single-handedly. Failure had been his inevitable fate. More than 10 quasi-emperors, wielding emperor scriptures, forced the gravely wounded Supremes to retreat. Together, they executed the unwilling Spirit-Divine King. In this battle, too many had died. Even the old quasi-emperor of the Emperor Palace had fallen. From the direction of the palace came the sound of mournful weeping. With his death, the era of the Emperor Palace had truly come to an end. Yet even after the battle concluded, the Emperor tribulation did not disperse. Someone has become an emperor. As the tribulation descended, the crowd finally saw the figure bathed in thunderlight. You, how could it be you? Lin Zhan let out an unwilling roar. He too was a quasi-emperor. Given another 1,000 years, the one ascending might have been him. In that moment, black chi surged from Lin Zhan's body. With a casual sweep of his hand, he erased an entire star domain. Then, without another word, he fled into one of the forbidden zones. Wang Yunfei returned to the heavenly profound domain. I will seal myself away and await the opening of the next great era. In this one, it is not that I cannot become an emperor, but that the timing will not wait for me. After entrusting everything to Su Chen and leaving the Wang family in his care, Wang Yunfei returned to the Emperor Palace. Together with Fan Qingyin, he sealed himself away, waiting for the dawn of the next great era. The supremes of the forbidden zones, perhaps battered enough, did not emerge again. It made sense. Divine Evolution Great Emperor had slain 4, gravely wounded 1, and driven 2 to flee. Then came the battle against the Spirit Divine King, in which 2 more emerged only to be severely injured. The only one who profited, Supreme Zhou Guang, had taken the Spirit Divine King's arm bone and vanished without a trace, seemingly wary of something. These were Supremes whose lifespans neared their end, forced to gamble everything in one last desperate bid. The others, if they conserved their vitality, might endure another few 100,000 or even 1,000,000 years. There was no need to risk death against a newly ascended great emperor. If they lost that gamble, the consequences would be unbearable. If you find this story on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen. Please report the infringement. Fong Bubi, it was actually him who became emperor. Su Chen felt both surprise and a sense of inevitability. Aside from the Spirit Divine King, Fong Bubi had been the closest to the peak of quasi-emperor. After the battle with the Spirit Divine King, he had gained the greatest benefits. As the thunder tribulation faded, a new great Tao slowly rose in the cosmos once more, suppressing all beneath it. Congratulations to the invincible great emperor, ascension to the Emperor Tao. After the primordial era, the 34th great emperor had appeared. The ones who rejoiced most were the people of the eastern wastelands prison-suppressing sacred land. With Fong Bubi's ascension in this era, had they not become an emperor lineage? After achieving the Tao, Fong Bubi traveled to many places. With a great emperor alive in the world, the myriad races of the cosmos dared not disobey. In the end, Fong Bubi returned to the heavenly profound domain. Heaven, earth, and the myriad races once again returned to peace. In this era, an utterly terrifying dark turmoil erupted. The number of supremes involved could be counted on 2 hands. Astonishingly, despite so many supremes emerging, the catastrophe did not lead to the extinction of all life. Among every recorded dark turmoil in history, the number of casualties in this one was the fewest. 800 years later, Su Chen's cultivation reached the peak of the Saint Realm. He resigned from his position as patriarch of the Wang family. His most outstanding descendant took over as the new patriarch. The Wang family's last remaining Saint King had grown decrepit with age. Su Chen had no choice but to seek out an opportunity to break through to the Saint King realm. Another 800 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Chen successfully advanced to the Saint King realm. A Saint King enjoyed 8,000 years of lifespan, an extension of 3,000 more years. Yet Su Chen knew that, given his aptitude, he would likely never have the chance to reach the great Saint realm in this lifetime. After breaking through to Saint King, Su Chen returned to the Wang family. The last Saint King of the clan had reached the end of his life. In a final desperate gamble, he ventured into a life-forbidden zone and never emerged again. His soul lamp extinguished soon after. The heavenly profound domain had undergone enormous changes. Thanks to Fong Bubi's ascension, the domain had been elevated to an emperor domain and become the new center of the cosmos. The eastern wasteland had replaced Central Continent as the most powerful of the 5. Su Chen traveled to the eastern wasteland. Almost all of his old acquaintances had perished over the years. Yet Ling Wuya of the heavenly ruined sacred land had survived multiple cataclysms and turmoil. Now he served as the sacred land's lord and had become a Saint King powerhouse. When the 2 old friends reunited, they spoke freely and joyfully for a long time. Several months later, Su Chen departed the heavenly ruined sacred land and headed to the southern barbarian lands. The former heavenly sword sacred land had failed to produce even a single saint during this great era. Its original territory had been seized long ago, and the sect had vanished into the river of history. Su Chen arrived at the new sacred land that now occupied the site. He made no effort to conceal his Saint King aura. A trembling saint soon appeared before him. "Senior, what brings you here?" Su Chen spoke calmly. "This seat once had ties with the heavenly sword sacred land of old. Tell me, did your sect destroy them?" The words alone drained the color from the saint's face. He trembled uncontrollably. Su Chen gave a faint smile. "This seat sees that your cultivation has not been easy. Hand over the inheritance of the heavenly sword sacred land. In return, I will find a suitable successor for them. That way, I will not have betrayed the old bonds." The saint dared not refuse. He knew full well this was outright robbery, yet under the crushing pressure of a Saint King, he had no choice but to comply. Su Chen obtained the inheritance of the heavenly sword sacred land without the slightest effort. It included a powerful ancient saint scripture and the secret method by which the sacred land's sacred sons had turned their very bodies into swords. He spent 100 years comprehending it and gained profound insight. His martial Tao grew even more complete. Su Chen returned to the Wang family and sealed himself away. 5,000 years later, he was awakened. A new genius had emerged in the Wang family and was preparing to break through to the Saint King realm. Su Chen stood guard for him until the breakthrough succeeded. Perhaps it is time for me to pursue my own martial Tao path. After entrusting the Wang family to that Saint King descendant and leaving behind his own Saint King artifact as the clan's foundation, Su Chen set out alone into the starry expanse beyond the domains. He sought the methods of the myriad races. Different species walked different paths, and the road Su Chen chose was to fuse those countless paths into one invincible Tao. He traversed many places and explored numerous ruins. 1,000 years passed. Su Chen found himself fleeing pursuit. Several Saint King powerhouses from different races chased him across star domains. All I did was borrow a few cultivation methods. Is that really worth such pettiness? Stately Saint Kings, and yet not a shred of magnanimity. Su Chen shook his head at the frenzied Saint Kings of various races snapping at his heels like mad dogs. After decades of evasion, he finally shook them off. His name spread across many star systems because of it, though the reputation was far from flattering. Su Chen maintained that it was all slander. Notably, he had been traveling with Hu Miao the entire time, wandering among the various races. But no matter how careful one was, walking along the river eventually led to wet shoes. In the end, he was exposed, and the powerful began to hunt him. Clearly, he could not act openly for a while. Su Chen turned his gaze toward the forbidden zones. When Hu Miao learned of his plan to enter one, she clung desperately to his leg in terror. Master, the forbidden zones are too dangerous. Why don't we just return to the heavenly profound domain? Under Su Chen's constant nurturing over the years, Hu Miao had broken through to the Saint Realm a century earlier. Su Chen rolled his eyes, then carried her straight into the forbidden zone. The forbidden zones really are very dangerous. Su Chen nodded in agreement. He chose one without a residing supreme. Inside, he encountered terrifying killing formations, yet they failed to stop him. He even found a maturing sacred herb, only to be chased out by several Saint Kings of the zone. One even wielded a great saint weapon. Su Chen had no choice but to retreat for the time being. He continued to wander, witnessing the brilliance of countless different civilizations. In the end, he paused above an ancient planet. Love this story? Find the genuine version on the author's preferred platform and support their work. His once saintly body now radiated decay. His full head of black hair had turned stark white. Miao, do you still remember the way back to the heavenly profound domain? Hu Miao crouched beside him. After so many years traveling together, she understood his condition better than anyone. Master, let Miao accompany you into one more forbidden zone. We'll return to the heavenly profound domain together. Su Chen shook his head. He knew his own body best. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it back. If you are willing, take my corpse back to the Wang family. Tell them not to bury it. Instead, refine it into a weapon. In a critical moment in the future, it might protect the Wang family for a time. And if you cannot return to the heavenly profound domain, you may eat my corpse. I won't blame you. A weary smile appeared on Su Chen's aged face. Hu Miao wept uncontrollably. In this life, I have borne witness to two great eras. That is enough to leave me without regrets. The era of divine evolution Great Emperor had not yet faded when the era of invincible Great Emperor began. Across two consecutive great eras, Su Chen had served as their witness. Having weathered storms and tempests, he lived 8,000 years before finally passing peacefully at the end of his lifespan. 3 years later, Su Chen closed his eyes for the last time and departed this world. A tiger saint carried his aged body, step by step, toward the direction of the heavenly profound domain. Inside the reverse fate space, Su Chen felt as though he had just awakened from an immensely long dream. 8,000 years of life, this was longer than any of his previous existences, even longer than the sum of his first 9 lives combined. 10th life, you were born the second son of the Wang family. You had an elder brother endowed with the qualifications to become a great emperor, and you were fortunate enough to be born into a truly golden era, an age when stars shone with unparalleled brilliance. You refused to live forever as a mere backdrop to your brother's legend. In your youth, you resolutely left the clan and set out to forge your own path. You swept aside the prodigies of the southern barbarian lands of the heavenly profound, leaving no one daring to challenge you. Even the monsters of the previous era cast sidelong glances your way. In the great battle of the eastern wasteland, you were defeated by a former invincible figure, yet from that loss, you gained a true friend and began to walk your own Tao. You established a foothold in the great era. In Central Continent, you witnessed what true great emperor potential looked like. For a time, you even believed the imperial destiny of this age belonged to the Wang family. While Wang Yunfei battled along the path to the emperor, you anchored the Wang clan. You yearned for the starry expanse, yet you understood that place was not meant for you in this life. Being the patriarch of the Wang family suited you far better. Thereafter, your life was filled with twists and turns. Divine evolution Great Emperor feigned death and drew out the Forbidden Zone Supremes. In a single war, he slew 4 Supremes, forcing the Forbidden Zones to bow their heads. You bore witness to that historic moment. The spirit-divine king you had once suspected would revive did indeed awaken, attempting to seize the Imperial destiny, only to be besieged by all sides and defeated once more. That lesson stayed with you forever. Your old acquaintance seized the opportunity and proved the Tao. The heavenly mandate did not rest with the Wang family after all, but with your former friend Fong Bubi. You personally witnessed the glorious ascensions of two great emperors, two magnificent eras connected seamlessly. What you once thought would be an early death in the chaos of the age instead rekindled your will to live. In the great era, you chose to pursue your own path. After waiting for the Wang family to raise a new Saint King, you resolutely departed the clan and the heavenly profound domain. You ventured forth to behold the splendor of the myriad races and witness the brilliance of different civilizations. In this life, you became the witness beneath the great era, observing the dazzling heights of prosperity, yet also stirring storms that left many races gnashing their teeth in hatred. In the end, you passed away peacefully amid that flourishing age. Evaluation, 4 stars, purple. Reward, 40,000 reverse fate points. Looking back on his life, born into a grand era, he had seen far too many dazzling figures. In the torrent of that age, beneath the brilliance of the great era, Chen had left behind very little ink on the pages of history. This era was destined to belong to one person alone. Chen glanced at his current reverse fate points, 40,000 from this life, plus the 5,000 from before, a total of 45,000. Less than 10,000 years remained until Fong Bubi's ascension. Trying to achieve the Tao in that span was no different from a fool's dream. Talent, 0, plus. Comprehension, 0, plus. Family background, 0, plus. Tao heart, 1,000. Talent, plus 10,000. Comprehension, plus 10,000. Family background, plus 10,000. 15,000 reverse fate points remained. Chen chose to save them. He wanted to see what would happen once any single attribute reached 10,000 points. He opened the reverse fate scripture and initiated the next life. Martial spirit, flame bird. Rating, B grade. Chen opened his eyes in bewilderment. Where is this? Towering buildings rose around him. A dense crowd of people stood on a vast sports field. At the center of the field stood a high platform. On it was a man in military uniform, and beside him a youth of only 17 or 18, flames wreathing his body while a flame bird totem hovered behind him. Chen looked down and realized he too wore a blue and white uniform. For a moment, he felt dazed. Memories of this life flooded his mind. In this life, his name was Chen. The world he inhabited was called the Spirit Hub Domain, more precisely, a planet within it named Hylon Star. Originally, this place had no cultivation system at all. Then one day, a substance called origin energy appeared, causing mutations in certain people. They awakened their martial spirits, granting humanity the chance to grow stronger. This continued for 100 years until, in one region of Hylon Star, space suddenly collapsed. Countless monsters poured out. More and more rifts appeared, unleashing creatures impervious to blades, fire, and water. Humanity survived by obtaining cultivation methods from an ancient ruin, hunting the monsters to grow stronger, and gradually stabilizing their position. By now, the human cultivation system had matured. Martial spirits were classified into 5 grades, S, A, B, C, D, E. Higher grades meant easier cultivation. The strongest human alive was an 8th-tier powerhouse capable of tearing space apart with ease. Isn't that just the Nirvana realm? Chen mused. The grading here seemed not so different from the heavenly profound system. What truly drew his attention, however, was his identity in this life. He came from a military family of loyal martyrs. Every ancestor had died on battlefields against alien races. His grandfather and grandmother perished in the heavenly rift. His father served as the supreme commander of one of the heavenly rifts and had not been seen since Chen's birth. His mother, once a leading expert in a research institute, had been assassinated by alien beings and passed away shortly after giving birth to him. Unauthorized duplication, this tale has been taken without consent. Report sightings. A family of martyrs, every generation sacrificing for humanity. Beyond that, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Except, where had his 10,000 points in family background gone? Chen took a deep breath. Next, Chen. As the military officer on the platform called his name, Chen set aside his wandering thoughts for the moment. Your Commander Zhang's son. The officer's stern face softened into a smile when he saw Chen. This is the testing crystal. It will awaken your talent. He led Chen to the crystal and watched with anticipation. The entire Zhang family were geniuses. Commander Zhang himself was one of only 13 S-grade martial spirit holders in Longxia. As the commander's only child, his talent could hardly be poor, especially now, when heavenly rifts were appearing more frequently, and Longxia's experts were stretched too thin. Chen placed his palm over the crystal as instructed. The moment his hand touched it, he felt something stirring inside his body. Without changing expression, he quietly withdrew his palm. Martial spirit, human race. Rating, C grade. Behind Chen appeared the phantom of a man standing with eyes tightly shut. The officer's face fell with visible disappointment. In this world, a human race martial spirit signified almost no potential. Humans lacked the innate might of other races, the ability to command natural phenomena. There was simply no future in it. Su Chen stepped down from the platform. Ha ha ha, so this is our great genius Jiang. Awakened a pathetic human race martial spirit with a mere C-grade rating. Su Chen turned his head. The speaker was a tall, cross-eyed young man who wasted no time launching into merciless mockery. Su Chen didn't bother searching his memories for the other's identity. In a single explosive step, he closed the distance, too fast for the youth to react, and drove a fist straight into his face. Teeth scattered across the ground like broken porcelain. Jiang Chen, you actually dared to hit me? I'm an A-grade martial spirit, Blazing Bear. I'm a genius. How dare you hit me? The youth clutched his ruined mouth, mumbling in disbelief through blood and shattered teeth. Remember this, you too are human. What right does a human have to look down on a human race martial spirit? Su Chen leaned down, towering over him with cold contempt. In the heavenly profound domain, humanity stood supreme. Several consecutive great emperors had been human, their might oppressing the cosmos. For ages the myriad races had bowed before mankind. Since when had humans groveled before other species? The youth realized his mistake too late. He scrambled to backtrack. Jiang Chen, you're slandering me. I never looked down on humans. I only said human race martial spirits are inferior to those of other races. Inwardly, he cursed Su Chen for his viciousness. If he publicly admitted to discriminating against humans, especially after being forced to acknowledge it, he would be branded a traitor in the next breath. Su Chen waved a hand dismissively. 1 month from now, I will prove to everyone that a human race martial spirit is no worse than any other. 1 month later, the major martial academies would begin recruiting students. Ignoring the stares of the crowd, he turned and left without another word. Delusional. A C-grade martial spirit still dreaming of entering a martial academy. The youth glared at Su Chen's departing back, eyes filled with venom. He wanted to watch this once-admired genius fall into the mud. By then, Su Chen had already returned to the Jiang residence. He summoned the old steward at once. Bring me a martial spirit crystal. Young master. Martial spirit crystals are vital strategic resources. They cannot be used lightly. The old steward gave a helpless, bitter smile. Su Chen's brow furrowed. Are you telling me that the Jiang family, generations of loyal martyrs who gave their lives for the nation, doesn't even have the right to requisition a single martial spirit crystal? The steward's heart jolted. Su Chen spoke calmly. Some things my ancestors refused to take. I will take them. The old steward looked at Su Chen and felt his pulse quicken. He hurried off to make the arrangements without another word. Alone in his room, Su Chen let out a soft sigh. The Jiang family ancestors had fought and died for their country, yet they took nothing in return. He, the only son of the supreme commander, lived in a residence with nothing but one old steward. Not even a single hair's worth of wealth remained. Was this really reasonable? Su Chen summoned his martial spirit. It was a man seated cross-legged with both eyes tightly shut. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about him. But who was Su Chen? In his previous life, he had reached the Saint King realm. In this world, a single palm from him could erase this entire star system. My martial spirit is far from ordinary. Before long, the old steward returned with the martial spirit crystal. Su Chen placed one hand on it. Before he could fully release his martial spirit, the crystal cracked with a sharp sound and shattered. As the crystal broke apart, the closed-eyed man abruptly opened his eyes. He glanced at Su Chen, then extended a single finger. A cascade of golden scriptures flooded Su Chen's mind, coalescing into a cultivation method called the heaven-covering art. Su Chen was mildly startled as the technique took shape in his sea of consciousness. Heaven-covering art, what an audacious name. This is actually a quasi-emperor scripture. Just what is the origin of this man? Unfortunately, the figure offered no answer. After imparting the heaven-covering art, he closed his eyes once more and sank back into apparent slumber. Understanding dawned on Su Chen. The missing 10,000 points in family background were here. The missing 10,000 points in talent were here as well. The man before him had been, at the very least, a starry great saint. Otherwise, he could never have casually bestowed a quasi-emperor scripture for cultivation. After beginning to practice the heaven-covering art, Su Chen immediately felt that the technique had been tailor-made for him. A tremendous power within his body gradually awakened in response to the art's circulation, terrifying tides of origin energy surged around him on all sides. 1 week later, Su Chen opened his eyes. His cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th layer of spirit gathering, equivalent to peak 2nd tier in this world. Unfortunately, the origin energy here was far too thin. The terrifying power inside him had activated less than 1% of its potential. This was undoubtedly a divine physique, yet this world clearly had no concept of divine physiques. Born under such poor conditions, his divine body had remained dormant and malnourished. Su Chen named his divine physique the heaven-covering divine body. The compatibility between his constitution and the heaven-covering art was perfect, far surpassing even the primordial Taotai body or the heaven-devouring earth-swallowing divine art in synergy. He quickly set his main objective, acquire resources. To fully awaken the divine body. Thanks to his status as a member of the Jiang family, he could requisition some cultivation resources, but given his C-grade rating, drawing too much would surely earn him a severe scolding from his father if word reached him. Su Chen cultivated for 3 more days. The long silent martial spirit opened his eyes once again and extended a hand, writing a single word in the air. If you discover this tale on Amazon, be aware that it has been unlawfully taken from Royal Road. Please report it. Battle. In that instant, Su Chen's cultivation broke through from spirit gathering to the spirit vein realm. Golden runes shimmered in his sea of consciousness. Whenever he invoked the character, battle, his strength and speed would instantly double, and he could sense this was far from the limit. If he could fully comprehend the character, he would obtain an unimaginable fortune. In just 10 days Su Chen had gone from an insignificant nobody to a spirit vein realm cultivator, 3rd tier in this world's terms. The 3rd tier was already counted as an elite. Very few reached that level. Even the instructors at his school were only 3rd tier at best. But to Su Chen, this was nothing at all. 3rd tier, that should be enough to enter some of the weaker heavenly rifts. The heavenly rifts were lairs inhabited by weaker alien races. The strongest creatures inside even the most dangerous ordinary rifts were only at the spirit soul realm. Anything beyond spirit soul qualified as a heavenly rift. When a heavenly rift erupted, it unleashed catastrophic disasters and required armies and powerhouses to stand guard at all times. Su Chen felt that these heavenly rifts and earthly rifts closely resembled the secret realms formed from the corpses of powerhouses above the profound connection realm in his previous life, independent spaces unto themselves. Whether his suspicion was correct or not, he would only know after personally stepping inside one. Soon he set out, dressed in loose black robes and wearing dark sunglasses, heading toward the location of a nearby earthly rift. This particular rift was controlled by a powerful local syndicate. The race dwelling inside was a minor one known as the dwarf tribe, ugly, squat, humanoid in shape yet exceptionally vicious and bloodthirsty. Entry to the dwarf earthly rift costs 10,000 spirit coins. Su Chen paid without hesitation. Beyond the massive gate forged from profound iron lay a long tunnel. Bloodstains that no amount of cleaning could erase still clung to the walls, along with broken weapons and corpses reduced to white bones. A brutal battle had once taken place here. After passing through the gate, however, Su Chen emerged into an unfamiliar jungle. Lush vegetation stretched in every direction, resembling a primeval forest. The world was small, its laws incomplete, not even 1/10 as robust as the outside world. So these so-called earthly rifts are actually formed from the corpses of powerhouses in the starry void. The dwarf earthly rift is most likely the secret realm born from the body of a profound connection realm cultivator after death. His guess proved correct. In this world's terms, the profound connection realm equated to the 6th tier, also known as the king level. Before long, Su Chen encountered his first dwarf, short and bloated, clutching a mace forged from iron. Its pitch-black skin split into a wide grin full of sharp teeth. Su Chen silently corrected the name in his mind, these should be called goblin dwarves. Even the first one he met possessed 4th-layer spirit vein realm strength. Yet in Su Chen's eyes, their cultivation system was crude and backward. At the same 4th-layer spirit vein, even the weakest cultivator from the heavenly profound domain could easily handle several of these. Su Chen shook his head. In a small inner world like this, reaching the 4th-layer spirit vein was already impressive. How could they possibly compare to the accumulated wisdom of trillions of beings across billions of years in the heavenly profound domain? The dwarf bared its teeth, greed flashing in its eyes as it jabbered incomprehensibly. Su Chen drew a long blade and cleaved its body in half with one stroke, then split open its skull. Inside lay a black stone, an energy core in this world's terminology. It could sell for 1,000 spirit coins or so. Companies would then refine these black stones into energy fluids for ability users to cultivate with. To Su Chen, those energy fluids were far too crude. The side effects were severe, even the highest grade ones paled in comparison to proper pills. Unfortunately, this world had no alchemy tradition, so Su Chen had no choice but to venture into the rifts himself in search of raw materials for pill refining. After all, everything here was fundamentally different from the heavenly profound domain. He stored the energy core and pressed deeper. 5 days later, Su Chen located a dwarf settlement. More than 100 dwarves were gathered beneath an ancient tree, performing some kind of worship. From a distance, Su Chen already sensed a vast surge of energy. This is. He narrowed his eyes. A beam of light suddenly descended from the sky. Under the radiance of that pillar, the strength of every single one of the 100+ dwarves began to rise sharply. That aura. There was no mistaking it. Su Chen had personally lived through a dark turmoil. He had also clashed with the corrupted powerhouses of the Forbidden Zones. The impression that aura left was indelible. The energy radiating from the towering pillar of light shared the exact same origin as that ominous, inauspicious presence. In other words, this dwarf's secret realm was connected to some ancient being from a forbidden zone. Su Chen's heart sank. The situation was far from optimistic. Even the weakest forbidden zone harbored at least a saint-level existence. This world was in far worse shape than he had imagined. Yet what intrigued him more was why these feeble creatures had any connection to a forbidden zone at all. Under the baptism of the divine pillar, the strongest among the dwarves had only reached the 4th-tier spirit sea realm at best. The moment the dwarves noticed the sudden appearance of a human, their chieftain, a squat figure wearing a feathered headdress and clutching a staff, let out a shrill, guttural cry, jabbering wildly. Jabber all you want. Tell it to my blade. Su Chen swung his long knife in a clean arc. One dwarf warrior failed to react in time and was cleaved in half at the waist. The sight instantly enraged the entire tribe. At their chieftain's command, dwarf warriors charged forward without fear of death. And then they all died. Su Chen advanced like a god of slaughter, stepping through pools of green blood. When the chieftain saw his entire tribe cut down before this human, rage consumed him. His body swelled violently, transforming into a 3-meter-tall giant. His aura faintly surpassed the limit of the spirit sea realm. A trace of seriousness finally appeared in Su Chen's eyes. He raised his long blade. Totems materialized one after another before him. With a single downward slash, the totem shattered, coalescing into a terrifying 100-meter blade beam that tore the earth apart. This was a technique he had obtained in his previous life from a saint king who specialized in the way of the blade, a long knife that had once carved through countless heroes. Heavenly young Imperial divine blade. The freshly transformed dwarf chieftain froze for an instant. Without hesitation, he turned and fled, but he never made it past 100 meters. The blade beam sliced him cleanly in two. After delivering the strike, Su Chen's face turned somewhat pale. Unleashing a Saint King-grade ultimate technique took a tremendous toll even on him. He harvested every energy core from the corpses, then approached the mysterious ancient tree. Only now did he see clearly what lay beneath it, piles of human skeletons arranged carelessly. Deeper in the settlement, he discovered living humans, penned like livestock, treated worse than pigs or dogs. When those survivors saw Su Chen arrive, hope flared in their eyes as though they had witnessed a savior. From their trembling accounts, Su Chen learned the full story. The Black Tiger Gang, colluding with the dwarf tribe to slaughter their own kind. The genuine version of this novel can be found on another site. Support the author by reading it there. Many adventurers who entered the dwarf rift had not died at the hands of the dwarves, they had been killed by their fellow humans. Worse still, the Black Tiger Gang had been abducting people from the outside world and delivering them to the dwarves as sacrificial offerings for their rituals. Every corpse here belonged to a human. Su Chen's expression darkened. Piece by piece, the clues connected, reminding him of something he had seen before. In certain ignorant small worlds, the weak would revere the terrifying existences within forbidden zones as gods. They held grand sacrifices, acted as willing accomplices, and offered vitality to those beings. In return, the forbidden zone entities would occasionally bestow a sliver of power, granting these weak creatures the chance to grow stronger, but that debt would eventually be repaid in full. The beings in the forbidden zones were never benevolent. These small worlds were linked to forbidden zones. The commotion here has probably already reached the Black Tiger Gang. If I leave the dwarf earthly rift now, their people will definitely be waiting outside. The Black Tiger Gang controlled this rift and had a 5th-tier spirit soul realm powerhouse sitting in command. Though Su Chen possessed many techniques, he still could not reliably contend against a spirit soul realm cultivator while only at the spirit vein realm. The gap between the two was simply too vast. Therefore, he decided to remain inside the dwarf earthly rift for a while and cultivate until his strength was sufficient. Only then would he leave and uproot the Black Tiger Gang waiting outside. He instructed the survivors to stay hidden inside the rift until everything was settled before attempting to escape. As for himself, he set off in search of alchemy materials. 3 days later, Su Chen gazed at the 5 perfectly round pills in his palm, each glowing with a faint halo. He swallowed the first one in a single gulp. His cultivation surged wildly. In less than a few hours, he broke through from the 1st layer spirit vein to the 4th layer spirit vein. Without hesitation, he consumed the remaining 4 pills one after another. 1 day later, golden light flared in Su Chen's eyes. His cultivation soared all the way to the 9th layer spirit vein. The privilege of a powerhouse recultivating was precisely this unrestrained. For ordinary people, the barrier from the 9th layer spirit vein to the spirit sea realm was a major bottleneck. For Su Chen, it held no secrets whatsoever. He spent another 2 days refining more pills, swallowed them, and smoothly advanced to the spirit sea realm. In this world's terms, he had become a 4th-tier powerhouse. That was already enough to suppress some of the weaker earthly rifts. Su Chen exhaled slowly. His goal had been achieved. It was time to leave the dwarf earthly rift. Yet as he passed through the site of the first village again, he found fresh corpses strewn across the ground. The survivors he had rescued earlier now lay dead, their bodies bearing clear wounds from human blades. Su Chen let out a soft sigh. He had clearly warned them not to leave the rift. Evidently, someone had disobeyed, slipped out quietly, and led the Black Tiger Gang straight back inside, resulting in the complete annihilation of the survivors. By now, the Black Tiger Gang members were likely scouring the entire rift for him. Suddenly, Su Chen's gaze snapped toward a certain direction. With 2 steps, he vanished from where he stood. A dozen or so men in black were searching the area. One of them, a burly man with flower tattoos covering his arms, held an iron chain in his hand. At the other end of the chain lay a blood-soaked man, barely breathing, clearly on the verge of death. The tattooed man's face was dark with fury. Damn useless trash. Can't even find a single person. When Su Chen had wiped out the first dwarf tribe, the Black Tiger Gang had already taken notice. The higher-ups had been alarmed. If word spread that they were colluding with the dwarf tribe to slaughter their own kind, the Federation's retaliation would be terrifying. The Black Tiger Gang had adopted the principle of, better to kill the wrong person than let the right one escape. They intended to eliminate every possible witness. They had laid multiple ambushes outside long ago. Then they captured someone who claimed to know the full truth. Under that person's guidance, the gang dispatched their elite force into the rift to eliminate the one who knew everything before the situation spiraled further. Yet several days had passed, and they still hadn't located the person who dared annihilate an entire dwarf tribe. Boss. One of the underlings suddenly pointed upward with a trembling finger. The tattooed man looked up. A figure hovered in the sky above them. The expressions of every Black Tiger gang member changed drastically. He can fly. Are you looking for me? Chen hovered in the air, gazing down at the group below with complete indifference. His eyes carried the detached calm of someone regarding corpses that simply hadn't stopped breathing yet. The man chained like a dog suddenly trembled with excitement the moment he saw Chen. Tears streamed from his eyes as he tried desperately to speak, but only bloody gurgles escaped his ruined mouth. The Black Tiger gang members instantly recognized the youth floating above them. Yet none of them felt any joy. Because this person could fly, and in this world, only 6th-tier powerhouses could fly. No, wait, you can't possibly be 6th tier. You have wings. True 6th-tier experts fly without wings. You must have obtained some kind of inheritance. The tattooed man's eyes lit up with naked greed when he noticed the pair of wings on Chen's back. If he could seize such an inheritance, why would he still be stuck serving in a petty gang like Black Tiger? The profits alone would tempt even legendary 6th-tier powerhouses. But in the next instant, the youth in the sky vanished. A gentle breeze brushed past. The tattooed man felt something warm trickle across his cheek. He reached up instinctively, his fingers came away bright red. He looked down. A familiar face stared up at him with wide, uncomprehending eyes, lifeless. It was one of his own subordinates. The tattooed man turned stiffly. Every single member of the Black Tiger gang lay dead around him. Only he remained, standing alone. Take me to the Black Tiger gang's headquarters. The tattooed man opened his mouth to snarl something defiant, only for a blade to press against his throat. The razor edge and the warm stickiness of fresh blood silenced him instantly. Sir, no problem at all. He did not want to die. The chained man crawled painfully to Chen's feet. He knelt and kowtowed again and again, bloody tears mixing with the dirt as he tried wordlessly to beg. Why bother? Chen looked down at him calmly. Because of your selfishness, people who could have lived are now dead. You want me to save you, but this is your retribution. Cause and effect devour their own. Chen turned away, leaving the man wailing on the ground. There was no pity in his heart. He had already given them the chance to survive. Chen forced the tattooed man to lead him back to the entrance tunnel of the dwarf earthly rift. Fresh corpses now littered the passage, adventurers who had entered the rift. Every one of them had been killed by the Black Tiger gang, stripped even of their clothes. Guards still stood watch at the entrance, but to Chen, they were no different from ants. This book was originally published on Royal Road. Check it out there for the real experience. Sir, they don't know what's really happening in the rift. They're just following orders from above. Please spare them, sir. The tattooed man watched one brother after another fall, his voice trembling as he begged. Chen shook his head. If I spare them, what about the people who died in ignorance at their hands? He carved a path straight out of the tunnel. By the time the people outside reacted and tried to slam the profound iron gate shut, it was already too late. He's one of our 13 hall masters. The tattooed man pointed at a man with a handlebar mustache and introduced him in a low voice. Stray dog, you actually betrayed Black Tiger Hall. The mustached man's face twisted with rage when he saw the tattooed man leading a youth out of the rift. Chen was already standing in front of him. Why collude with the dwarf tribe to slaughter your own people? Chen pressed the blade directly against the man's throat. The mustached man gave a wretched laugh. Those idiots came into the dwarf rift looking for resources. They never realized, they were the resources. Rifts are dangerous. A few explorers dying inside is perfectly normal. Chen shook his head. You're lying. The mustached man's pupils shrank violently. Before he could even struggle, Chen's blade flashed once. The head tumbled free, rolling across the dirt with wide, uncomprehending eyes. Chen closed the entrance to the dwarf earthly rift. Under the tattooed man's trembling guidance, he headed straight for the Black Tiger Hall's main stronghold. Inside the hall, Chen moved like a ghost through an empty graveyard. You must be the third hall master of Black Tiger Hall. Before him stood an elderly man with gray-streaked hair and a monocle perched on one eye. A 9th-layer spirit sea realm powerhouse. Young man, arrogance has a price. The old man narrowed his eyes. Behind him materialized a three-eyed black serpent. Chen swung his blade in a single, casual arc. The three-eyed serpent split cleanly in two and dissolved into black mist. The old man coughed up a mouthful of blood and flew backward. The next instant, he felt cold steel against his throat. The old man let out a long sigh. The Yangtze River's waves pushed the old ones forward. What do you want to know? Chen spoke indifferently. Tell me, why collude with the dwarf tribe to slaughter your own kind? The old man laughed bitterly. Nothing but profit. Chen shook his head. You're lying. But I don't care. He killed the old man and continued deeper into the hall. The second hall master was absent. Chen arrived at the location of the first hall master. The first Hall Master was a 5th-tier spirit soul realm powerhouse. What caught Su Chen's eye was the statue enshrined at the center, not a god, not a Buddha, but a dwarf. You're surprised? The first Hall Master caught the flicker of astonishment in Su Chen's gaze. Then, with a trace of madness in his voice, he continued, the dwarf tribe is the god of our Black Tiger Hall. The sole purpose of our existence is to serve the dwarf tribe and provide them with sacrifices. This time, he spoke the truth. Su Chen thought of the Jiang family, generations who had sacrificed everything for Longxia, and asked the question burning in his mind. The dwarf tribe is such a weak race. Why would you willingly become their slaves? The first Hall Master laughed, the sound filled with bleak despair. You don't understand. You simply don't understand. Behind every earthly rift and heavenly rift stands a deity. Only humanity has no deity watching over us. Even the weakest dwarf tribe has the protection of a god. Humanity will eventually be devoured and enslaved. Though the dwarf tribe is weak now, with a deity's blessing, they will one day grow strong. When that day comes, Black Tiger Hall will submit to a divine favored race and preserve the last ember of humanity. He took a deep breath and murmured, I've told you so much so you can die with understanding. Now you may die. Su Chen suddenly found the whole thing both laughable and tragic. Deities? They're nothing but a bunch of defeated, lingering wretches clinging to life. Why had no Forbidden Zone creature ever forced humanity to worship them? Because in the current cosmos, the only emperor was human. What those Forbidden Zone beings dared not do, was mistaken for abandonment, for weakness. Su Chen raised his blade. The heavenly Yang Imperial divine blade technique unfolded. A dazzling streak of knife light flashed through the first Hall Master's vision. In a single strike, the entire Black Tiger Hall was razed to the ground. Su Chen turned to the tattooed man standing beside him. You recognize my identity? The tattooed man nodded slowly. You are Commander Zhang's son. I know I won't leave here alive today, but I believe you. Perhaps you can change this world. Blood poured from his mouth as he whispered his final words, be careful, of the celestial god cult. Before Su Chen's eyes, the tattooed man dissolved into a cloud of bloody mist. The celestial god cult. The massive commotion caused by Su Chen's destruction of Black Tiger Hall inevitably drew the attention of provincial law enforcers. By the time they arrived, however, Su Chen had already vanished from the ruins. What kind of terrifying powerhouse did this? The investigators stared at the scene, not a single survivor remained, and Black Tiger Hall had been reduced to rubble. They exchanged uneasy glances. A 5th-tier powerhouse had been stationed here. A man in military uniform crouched down and picked up a broken fragment of stone. Could this be the work of a 6th-tier expert targeting Black Tiger Hall? He could sense a terrifying residual aura lingering in the debris. His expression gradually grew grave. Every 6th-tier powerhouse in Longxia was required to register with the authorities. The sudden appearance of an unknown one, if mishandled, it could unleash unimaginable disaster. Investigate. Spare no expense. We must uncover the identity of this 6th-tier expert. The entire Huan province trembled. No one knew that the one responsible for all this upheaval was still a youth who had awakened his martial spirit less than a month ago. Su Chen returned to the Jiang residence. His journey into the dwarf earthly rift and his clash with Black Tiger Hall had made one thing painfully clear, this world was far more complicated and rotten than he had imagined. Uncle Wu, have you ever heard of an organization called the Celestial God Cult? Wu was the steward of the Jiang household. The moment Steward Wu heard the name, his face changed dramatically. His voice turned deadly serious. Young master, where did you hear about the Celestial God Cult? Su Chen replied calmly, I took care of a small matter and happened to come across the name. It seems you're familiar with them as well. Steward Wu gave a bitter laugh. Young master, these are things you shouldn't be exposed to yet, but if you've already come into contact with the Celestial God Cult, I suspect it was far more than just a small matter. The Celestial God Cult is notorious. They worship evil gods and preach that all humanity should become slaves to other races in order to survive. They collude with alien species to slaughter their own kind. Every year, countless people die at their hands. The cult's members are powerful and extremely cautious, they are nearly impossible to eradicate completely. If you've encountered people from the Celestial God Cult, you must not let them sway you. I will report this to the master at once. He will send people to handle it. Su Chen shook his head. I already dealt with them. Steward Wu froze. He didn't even notice when Su Chen turned and walked back to his room. The young master said, he dealt with people from the Celestial God Cult. Stolen content alert, this content belongs on Royal Road. Report any occurrences. To become a member of the Celestial God Cult, someone qualified to serve alien races, the minimum requirement was 5th-tier strength. Steward Wu found the claim utterly absurd. But not long after, a piece of news shattered his worldview. Black Tiger Hall had been annihilated. Although the surveillance footage captured only a blurry silhouette, Steward Wu, who had lived with Su Chen for over 10 years, recognized the lone figure who had single-handedly destroyed Black Tiger Hall in an instant. It was unmistakably his own young master. Su Chen learned of the Celestial God Cult and grew increasingly convinced that this world was rotten to the core. Originally, he had little intention of meddling deeply in the affairs of this realm. Now it seemed clear, behind it all lurked some powerful Forbidden Zone existence, scheming something in secret. For a forbidden zone being to go to such elaborate lengths, the object they sought could not possibly be ordinary. Combined with the mystery surrounding his own martial spirit, a terrifying hypothesis formed in Su Chen's mind: perhaps this world contained an item connected to an emperor. He began refining pills in earnest and used them to cultivate. Soon, the day of the Martial Academy entrance examination arrived. In other words, college entrance exams. At Huan Province No. 1 High School, a tall young man with mismatched eyes scanned the crowd restlessly. He found his target at last. Jiang Chen. You finally showed up. Yang Fei's face lit up with savage delight. Today, he would drag this former genius down into the mud. As the only son of the Jiang family, whose ancestors and parents carried unparalleled glory, Su Chen had always been the school's shining star, the center of everyone's attention. Yang Fei, on the other hand, was just a bottom feeder. Perhaps Su Chen didn't even know his name. But Yang Fei knew the young master of the Jiang family very well. He hated the way everyone revolved around Su Chen, like right now, watching the goddess he had chased for so long rush forward to fuss over Su Chen the moment he appeared. The sight stabbed straight into Yang Fei's heart. A C-grade trash, how does he deserve so much respect? It's all because of his parents. Without them, he's nothing but a useless waste. But I, Yang Fei, am an A-grade genius, the future of Longxiao. Having awakened an A-grade talent, Yang Fei had only one desire: to trample the former genius beneath his feet. Unfortunately, from beginning to end, Su Chen never once glanced in his direction. As the students prepared for the martial exam, the school leadership suddenly appeared in full force. Yang Fei asked around curiously and learned that an extraordinarily important figure had arrived at the school. Moments later, he saw the entire group of school leaders clustered around one man. Jiang Chen, are you willing to join our War Martial Academy? Our War Martial Academy promises to grant you every resource at our disposal, as long as you join us. The man appeared taciturn and reserved, yet the moment he saw Su Chen, he stated his purpose plainly. The entire crowd fell deathly silent. One could have heard a pin drop. War Martial Academy, one of Longxia's top 10 martial academies. Over 2,000 years, how many commanders and marshals had graduated from its halls? Yang Fei could hardly believe it. Someone from War Martial Academy had actually come to No. 1 High School, and it seemed they had come specifically for Su Chen. This had never happened before. So, this is what real influence looks like. My A-grade talent can't even compare to a C-grade waste, just because he's from the Jiang family. Yang Fei clenched his fists so hard his knuckles turned white. Even with his A-grade talent, he wasn't guaranteed a spot in War Martial Academy. Student Jiang Chen, whatever the War Martial Academy can offer you, Imperial Capital Martial University can match. Join us, and you needn't worry about resources. Our death rate is far lower than War Martial Academies. Imperial Capital Martial University, the No. 1 ranked martial academy in Longxiao. And now they were making such an offer to Su Chen. Yang Fei's face turned livid, then ashen. He was unwilling, burningly unwilling. Yet it didn't end there.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.